Chapter 846. It just so happened that he was going to enter the inner city to find a place to concoct pills, so it was not a big deal for him to take part in the elixir gathering. The Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store was located in an extremely bustling area of the inner city. It was overcrowded with people. Suyu found the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store almost effortlessly. Not only was the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store magnificent like a palace, but it was also so huge that it was hard not to notice it. The Heavenly Fragrance Pill Store occupied an area of 100,000 square meters. In Tinya City, where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold, such a huge elixir store was rare. After entering the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store, the interior was luxuriously decorated, and the elixir energy permeated the air. It was divided into 10 areas, and each area sold pills of different grades. There were also low-grade spirit pills, and the highest-grade spirit pills were even at the Divine Master level. They were all expensive pills that cost more than 50,000 crystal stones each. Suyu couldn't help but smack his tongue. 50,000 crystals. Surely, the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store's profits must be astonishing. Showing the shopkeeper's token, Suyu went to the second floor. The second floor wasn't open to the public. It was where the staff of the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store stayed and ate. Of course, the most important thing was that it was also where meetings were held. Within the main hall, there were already 100 shopkeepers who had arrived. They were all restlessly waiting, whispering to each other, their expressions not too good. Hee, as expected, that fellow surnamed Fei is going to hold an elixir gathering again. It's just that he was reprimanded by the deputy general manager, and he immediately called us for a meeting. Look at how anxious he is. Someone mocked. For him to be this anxious, I can tell that the current situation of the alchemy market is very serious. I have a bad feeling about this alchemy gathering. I hope that Fei fellow doesn't go too far this time. Otherwise, even if I have to sacrifice some of my connections, I'll fight him to the end. Suyu listened to the crowd's discussions and waited quietly for the meeting to begin. This wait lasted for a full 2 hours. All the shopkeepers had already arrived, but great shopkeeper Fei still hadn't shown himself. Only when everyone became impatient did 2 beautiful maids walk out from another side hall. They stood at the entrance with their delicate heads bowed in a very respectful manner. The noisy hall instantly fell silent. The dissatisfied expressions on the faces of the shopkeepers were replaced with stern expressions. The sound of unhurried footsteps came from the side hall. A middle-aged man, wearing a long robe with golden threads on it, walked out with his hands behind his back. His face was expressionless, neither happy nor angry. His footsteps were steady, his gaze cold, and his aura was extremely strong. At this moment, the main hall was completely silent. No one was whispering to each other anymore. Suyu looked at this person, and he had quite a good impression of him. He was one of the 3 great shopkeepers, the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store's great shopkeeper. Suyu saw the reactions of the people around him. Great shopkeeper Fei came late, as if he had done this on purpose to show off his status as a great shopkeeper. Great shopkeeper Fei, who was sitting on the rostrum, swept his gaze over the crowd. It seemed like he was trying to figure out who hadn't arrived yet. After he had ascertained that everyone had arrived, he said, "Sirs, you should all be aware of the Red Blood Palace's elixir market situation. The Central Prefecture's factions have continuously released several brand new elixirs with excellent effects and favorable prices. This has caused our 18 Blessed and Heavenly Lands business to decline. Now is the time to test everyone. At this critical juncture, we should unite as one and resist the Central Continent's invasion together." Great shopkeeper Fei paused for a moment, then said, "In order to strengthen our advantage and resist the Central Prefecture's invasion, I have decided to hold an elixir meet and announce a plan to save the situation." The crowd didn't utter a single word, and they all looked at great shopkeeper Fei in confusion. The plan is that all elixir stores will unite and focus on the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store, then focus on selling the blood cleansing pill, spiritual nourishment pill, and exquisite powder. The Central Prefecture's most popular elixirs are the same type of elixirs as these 3 elixirs. So, if we can lower the price of the blood-cleansing pill and the other elixirs, then all elixir stores will carry out the same activity at the same time. Then we will surely be able to snatch a large number of customers and sell a large number of elixirs. What do you all think of this plan? The crowd started whispering to each other and discussing it intensely. Suyu was surprised by this, as he was quite familiar with such a plan. It was the so-called joint marketing. They would give up profits and reduce prices to attract customers. There were more than 100 elixir stores in Tianya City, and if they carried out the same activity at the same time, it would surely cause a great commotion and attract a large number of customers. As such, the Central Prefecture's elixir sales would decline. Such a plan couldn't be used for a long time, as it was like drinking poison to quench one's thirst. It couldn't be denied that Great Shopkeeper Fei's proposal was quite reasonable. The only thing that made Suyu smile was that Great Shopkeeper Fei didn't explain one matter clearly. After half a cup of tea's time had passed, the crowd's discussion had almost come to an end. What do you think? If you have any problems, you can raise them now. Once we carry them out, none of the elixir stores will go back on their word, and if they dare to go against us in secret, they will become our enemies, Great Shopkeeper Fei said. Some of the shrewd shopkeepers exchanged glances with each other before they elected a nameless low-grade store shopkeeper. He then asked, "Great Shopkeeper, may I ask where we can get the 3 elixirs you just mentioned? Are we just elixir dealers who look for their own supply?" Most of their elixir stores had alchemists making elixirs, but the elixirs they made were far from enough. Thus, they relied on elixir dealers to buy them back at a low price. Great Shopkeeper Fei revealed a faint smile and said, "You don't need to worry about that. These elixirs are all provided by our Heavenly Fragrance elixir store." Since there wasn't an issue with their supply, then they had to worry about the real problem. Since Great Shopkeeper Fei is providing them, then we can set our minds at ease. May I ask what the price of these 3 elixirs is? The shopkeeper asked the question that everyone was most concerned about. Great Shopkeeper Fei replied, "I will obviously give you a preferential price. If you buy these 3 elixirs from me, they will be sold for 9 crystals each. You should know that such elixirs are usually sold for 10 crystals in the market." Upon hearing this, the expressions of everyone present changed drastically, and they were all infuriated. Great Shopkeeper Fei was really going too far. They bought the 3 kinds of elixirs from elixir dealers. Usually, they only needed 5 crystals for one set. However, it was ridiculous that they had to pay 9 crystals to buy them from Great Shopkeeper Fei. Even if they sold all of them and earned a single crystal, they wouldn't even be able to earn back the store's operating costs. Great Shopkeeper Fei was obviously using the excuse of resisting the Central Prefecture's invasion to extort them wantonly, thus causing the Heavenly Fragrance elixir store's declining profits. Before the start of the meeting, they were all worried that Great Shopkeeper Fei would go too far. Now, it seemed like it wasn't just going too far, it was as if he was exploiting them like livestock. However, the strange thing was that even though all of them wished to skin Great Shopkeeper Fei alive, none of them dared to refute him, and none of them even revealed an angry expression. The low-grade shopkeeper, who had raised the question, turned pale, and his body swayed. "Do you have any other questions?" Great Shopkeeper Fei asked. The low-grade shopkeeper shook his head and sat down hurriedly. He didn't dare to raise any objections. Great Shopkeeper Fei revealed a faint smile and said, "Sirs, to ensure the quality of these 3 elixirs, you must buy them from the Heavenly Fragrance elixir store. If you buy them from an elixir dealer, don't blame me for not remembering my past kindness." The unspoken implication of his words was that he would force them to buy the elixirs from the Heavenly Fragrance elixir store at a high price. In this way, the Heavenly Fragrance elixir store will be able to make a huge profit this month, while the other elixir store's profits would undoubtedly decline. Great Shopkeeper Fei would definitely be able to get through this crisis, but the other elixir stores would be in a terrible situation. However, due to Great Shopkeeper Fei's connections, the shopkeepers of the middle-grade and low-grade elixir stores were worried that they would be oppressed and put in a difficult position. Before Great Shopkeeper Fei came here, they were filled with indignation, and if he went too far, they would rather quit than compromise with him. But now, great shopkeeper Fei was treating them like livestock, and none of them dared to refute him. Suyu shook his head as he looked at him, then stood up and asked, "Great shopkeeper Fei, do you have any other matters? If you don't, then I will take my leave." The main hall was already silent, yet someone had suddenly appeared at such a crucial juncture. How could they not be shocked by this? The crowd turned their heads around and looked at the fearless elixir store shopkeeper who was sitting in the back. Upon seeing him, many people were surprised. After all, he had stayed in the deputy general manager's side hall for a while, and he had left a deep impression on some of them. Most of them were confused, as they had never seen Suyu's face before. However, they were all amazed by Suyu's daring actions. His sudden departure was tantamount to giving great shopkeeper Fei a tight slap in the face. It must be known that he was forcing all of the shopkeepers to lower their heads, and Suyu's sudden appearance at such a time was obviously provoking great shopkeeper Fei's dignity. Great shopkeeper Fei was still wearing a faint smile, but a gloomy glint flickered in the depths of his eyes as he asked, "Who is this shopkeeper?" Suyu turned his head around to look at him, then replied indifferently, "I'm the Tonglin Elixir Store's new shopkeeper. I won't participate in Great Shopkeeper Fei's plan, as I still have something to do. So, you can continue." All of the shopkeepers were dumbfounded by this, as they couldn't believe that Suyu dared to talk back to Great Shopkeeper Fei. This lad is finished. More accurately speaking, both him and the Tonglin Elixir Store are finished. Great Shopkeeper Fei's expression stiffened. He had almost forgotten how many years it had been since someone dared to speak to him in such a manner in the Elixir Meet. "You're Tonglin, right? This plan is related to the Red Blood Palace's elixir industry in Tianya City, and if you don't participate in it, then who will bear the responsibility if it fails?" So you looked at him in confusion. "I'm just a small elixir store that is burdened with debts, so it doesn't matter whether I participate in it or not. If the plan fails, then it will obviously be your responsibility. So how can you put the responsibility on another shopkeeper? This plan was proposed by you, so the one who will bear the responsibility is obviously you. I really don't understand why you would ask such a question." Suyu shook his head, as if he was implying that Great Shopkeeper Fei was stupid and ignorant. All of the people present sucked in a breath of cold air as they wondered, is this lad crazy? Or does he not want to stay in Tianya City any longer? Great Shopkeeper Fei's expression became gloomy, and he couldn't keep up his act any longer. He slapped the table, stood up, and glared at Suyu angrily. "How impudent! I'm only concerned about the Red Blood Palace's industry, so why are you trying to sow discord between us? It seems to me like you're a spy sent by the Central Prefecture's factions." He didn't say anything further, as he immediately charged Suyu with a crime. Suyu shrugged his shoulders carelessly. "It doesn't matter what you think, as you can report it to the Deputy General Manager and say that I'm a spy. As long as the Deputy General Manager agrees to punish me, I will accept it. In any case, I won't allow your Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store to extort even a single cent from my Tonglin Elixir Store." Suyu decided to state this matter clearly. Great Shopkeeper Fei was so infuriated that his face became flushed and his body shivered as he pointed at Suyu angrily. "How dare you?" Chapter 847. His right was just to hold the Elixir Meet. He was only using his power to intimidate people, as well as his connections. As long as he gave the word, all elixir dealers who had connections with the Red Blood Palace wouldn't dare to sell their elixirs to any elixir store. This was because the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store was the elixir dealer's greatest financial backer, and none of them wanted to offend it. Shopkeeper Fei's expression became gloomy. "Newcomer, as long as you leave this place, I guarantee that you won't be able to open your elixir store again." However, what infuriated him was that Suyu still wore an indifferent expression. "Is that so? I'll wait and see." As he spoke, he left the main hall in front of the crowd's gazes. The whole place became deathly silent, and no one dared to speak. This was because they could all feel the anger in Shopkeeper Fei's chest, which was on the verge of erupting. After Suyu left the Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store, he started strolling around. As for Shopkeeper Fei's threat, he had already forgotten about it. This place was bustling and had all kinds of shops. When Suyu passed by a vast circular plaza, which was only inferior to the 9-story building and the island in the sky, a beautiful young girl came over to him and handed him a leaflet. Several lines of words were printed on it. This Tianya auction will have a mysterious finale item. If you register now, you will get a chance to get a spirit-nourishing pill, which is worth 10 crystals. Don't miss this opportunity. As Suyu looked at the leaflets, which were scattered all over the streets and alleys of his previous life, he couldn't help but smile. He couldn't help but miss his life on Earth. "Old mister, do you want to participate in the auction?" the beautiful young girl asked with a smile. Suyu shook his head. "I'm not interested in the auction for now, but I will need to consign some items for sale in your auction house. I'm not sure whether that's possible." The beautiful young girl's eyes lit up. "Old mister, as long as a treasure's value reaches Tianya City's auction standard, you will get a chance to enter the auction stage that will take place in half a month." She was an auction house's worker, and if she could get the owner of an item to come, she would get a commission. Suyu was wearing the Red Blood Palace's disciple's uniform, and since he was quite old, he must have some powerful treasures. "I will come back later." Suyu nodded. The beautiful young woman took out a thumb-sized stone from her sleeve and handed it over to him with a faint smile. "I'm Shah. And if you want to sell a treasure, you just have to crush this stone in front of the Tianya auction house, and Shah will come out." Suyu kept the stone and left with a smile. Tianya City was bustling with trade, so it was quite easy for Suyu to find an elixir production place. In the inner city alone, there were as many as 10 places for alchemists to practice alchemy. However, most of these alchemists belonged to a certain faction. Because there weren't many places in Tianya City that were suitable for producing earth fire, they had gathered in this region. Alchemists like Suyu, who did not belong to any faction, were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Suyu chose a relatively well-known elixir production place. This place was famous for its stable earth fire. Not only was it favored by new alchemists, but some old alchemists would also choose this place to produce important elixirs. Purple Flame Mountain. Suyu was standing in front of a mountain that was burning with raging flames. 3 words were carved on the mountain's forehead. The entire mountain was dug out with many caves of the same size. The caves were filled with earth fire and were very suitable for alchemy. However, the price was quite high. Each entry would be charged according to the hour, and each hour would cost 1 crystal. Suyu paid 4 crystals and chose a cave in the corner. After he entered it, the cave seal was activated automatically. The seal's soundproofing effect was very strong, so no matter what happened inside, it wouldn't be transmitted out. Moreover, the elixirs that were produced couldn't escape from the cave. It could be said that this was a seal designed for elixir production. The cave was well lit, and there was a fire pond in the center that was burning with raging flames. Moreover, it was very stable. There was also a sophisticated control device that could control the flame's minute changes. It was much more professional than the Red Blood Palace's Raging Flame Cabinet. After all, the Raging Flame Cabinet was just a place for cultivation, not elixir production. Suyu calmed himself down and took out the elixir furnace. He then placed the 2 portions of the heart-refining mortal dust liquid's ingredients in front of him. Suyu's heart was filled with anticipation as he wondered, what are the effects of the ancient elixir recipe? How helpful is it to one's soul? After getting rid of all distracting thoughts, Suyu started processing the ingredients. The most difficult to process was the heartbroken zither grass, as it contained a deadly poison. If he wasn't careful, he would contaminate the elixir and turn the heart-refining mortal dust liquid into a deadly poison. Even a divine master wouldn't be able to survive after consuming it. Suyu held the heartbroken zither grass in his hand, and according to the elixir recipe's instructions, he had to remove exactly 30% of the poison. If there was too much poison left in the grass, then the elixir produced would turn into a poisonous liquid. If he purified it too quickly, then the heart-refining mortal dust liquid's production would fail. Therefore, even the best elixir masters of the ancient times had to be very careful when processing the heartbroken zither grass, as it was very difficult. However, it was a piece of cake for Suyu. As the Milky Way's radiance revolved in his right palm, the poison in the heartbroken zither grass was absorbed bit by bit. When only 70% of the poison was left, Su Yu stopped immediately. The purple-black heartbroken zither grass had a light purple hue, and it looked like a crystal-clear jade hairpin. It was extremely beautiful. After purifying it, the rest of the ingredients were much easier to process. After 10 minutes, the 2 portions of ingredients were completely purified. Su Yu officially started refining the elixir. The extreme elixir manufacturing technique had 3 limits: purification, flames, and fusion. Su Yu could only achieve the former, while the latter 2 were still at the most rudimentary level. Even so, he still managed to successfully refine a 4th-grade spirit elixir. The heart-refining mortal dust liquid shouldn't be a difficult task. Su Yu took out the elixir furnace and meticulously followed the elixir recipe's instructions. He then put in the ingredients, covered the furnace, and tried to control the flames. What surprised Su Yu was that when he tried to control the flames, he discovered that his perception of the intensity of the flames had become much more sensitive than when he was refining elixirs the last time. He could even feel the flames' intimacy towards him, as wisps of fire-based aura slowly approached him. What's going on? Su Yu was surprised, and as he stared at the fire-based aura surrounding him, he suddenly understood. Is it because I've comprehended the 5 elements conception? Fire is one of the 5 elements. Su Yu couldn't help but marvel at it. He didn't expect that cultivating the 5 elements mysteries art would be of such great help to his elixir production. Su Yu was delighted, and he started wholeheartedly refining the heart-refining mortal dust liquid, which he'd been dreaming about for a long time. In the process of controlling the flames this time around, Su Yu was like water flowing into a canal. He was very close to the stage where his mind and soul were one with the flames. The flame process, which was the most prone to failure, was easily completed and entered the final pill fusion process. Su Yu did not have much experience with this process. Hence, after fusing the elixir 3 times and reaching his limit, he stopped. Buzz, buzz, buzz. With a light tremble, the pill furnace constantly shook, as if some powerful spiritual object within was trying to break through its shackles. Su Yu licked his lips, prepared the jade box, and patted the lid of the elixir furnace with one hand. Bang! The furnace was opened, and a loud sound rang out as a powerful pressure rushed into the sky, bringing with it a mist that spread out in all directions. It wasn't a solid pill, but a liquefied mist. So he was caught off guard. He waved his sleeves and gathered the mist in the jade box. However, he was still a step too late. 30% of it sprayed onto the stone wall and was wasted. Moreover, because the mist was exposed to the air, it caused the medicinal power to evaporate by 40%. The heart-refining mortal dust liquid's production was considered a success, but it failed at the elixir harvesting stage. As Su Yu looked at the jade box in his hand, the mist condensed within it and gradually fused into a liquid. There was a light purple layer on it, and it looked dreamy and beautiful. Wisps of alluring fragrance made one's soul feel refreshed. It was as if one's soul had just taken a bath and its dust had been swept away. This item was indeed effective for souls. The only unfortunate thing was that the elixir harvesting this time was slightly flawed, and it could be considered a failed product. However, Su Yu was not discouraged. He calmed himself down and started crafting another batch of ingredients. Having learned his lesson from the previous mistake, Su Yu's crafting was easy. For hours later, it was the final elixir harvesting stage. Su Yu had already suffered a loss once, so how could he make the same mistake again? The moment the elixir furnace was opened, Su Yu revolved his whole body's vital energy and enveloped the mist, preventing it from coming into contact with the air. When the mist gradually dissipated, Su Yu used his vital energy to envelop the mist and force it into the jade box. The heart-refining mortal dust liquid was obviously more crystalline and flawless. When the sunlight shone upon it, it emitted an intoxicating purple light. Wisps of soul-stirring fragrance wafted into Su Yu's nose from the cracks of the jade box. Su Yu couldn't help but let out a long groan, while delight appeared in his eyes. What a powerful medicinal power! If just its fragrance alone is this powerful, how beneficial will it be to my soul if I directly consume it? Suyu resisted the urge to consume it and put away the 2 jade boxes reluctantly. He then took the furnace and left the purple flame mountain. Before he left, he purposely cleaned up all traces of the elixir's crafting. He even got rid of the elixir's fragrance that lingered in the air so that no one would discover it. After he left the purple flame mountain, Suyu did not return to the Tonglin elixir store. Instead, he went straight to the auction house. If he wanted to reverse the Tonglin elixir store's losses and earn a large amount of merit points, the heart-refining mortal dust liquid would be an indispensable treasure. However, he did not know how great of a sensation this soul-tempering ancient elixir liquid would cause. After Suyu reached the Tianyao auction house, he crushed Sha'er's pebble. After a short while, Sha'er ran out while gasping for breath. She had an apologetic look on her face as she said, "Old mister, I'm sorry. The great appraiser just came back, so all of our employees went to listen to his lecture. That's why we couldn't come out in time. Please forgive us." So you didn't take offense. It doesn't matter. You also have your own difficulties. Take me inside. I have 2 treasures that I want to put up for sale. Sha'er's eyes lit up. "Old mister, may I ask what type of treasure it is?" "A type of spiritual liquid," Suyu replied. Sha'er furrowed her brows and said, "It's related to elixirs? This will be troublesome. Most of the items that Tianyao auction house receives are elixirs, but only a few of them can catch the appraiser's attention. But since you're here, you should give it a try. Perhaps you will succeed." Sha'er smiled encouragingly. She felt that Suyu didn't stand a chance. Tianyao City had an abundance of elixirs, so unless they were extremely rare and precious, it would be difficult for them to catch the appraiser's attention and be auctioned. The items that could be put up for auction were limited, so only a few of the items that were put up for sale were qualified to be displayed on the auction stage to Tianyao City's martial artists. Chapter 848. Even though Sha'er didn't think highly of Suyu, she still treated him kindly. Her status in the Tianyao auction house was quite low, and she was only qualified to distribute flyers on the street. She also tried to rope in martial artists who consigned their treasures for sale. The Tianyao auction house was the biggest auction house in the city, and countless martial artists came here to consign their items every day. Usually, people who possessed precious treasures would enter Tianyao City directly, and it was rare for them to be roped in like Suyu. This was the reason why the Tianyao auction house rarely took a fancy to the martial artists it recruited. Sha'er's actions of trying to rope in martial artists blindly didn't bring her any rewards, and she would only get 1 crystal as a reward from the auction house once or twice a year. Even so, Sha'er still enjoyed it, and she persisted. After all, a single crystal was a great fortune for a poor person like her. "Old mister, it's great that you're confident. Even if you can't satisfy the appraiser, please don't be discouraged, as there are 3 other auction houses in the city that aren't any smaller than ours, and you might be able to try your luck there." Sha'er pursed her lips into a faint smile. Tianyao City was vast, and there was obviously more than 1 auction house. Apart from the Tianyao auction house, there were 3 other auction houses from the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Lands and the Central Prefecture. Even though they weren't as good as the Tianyao auction house, they were still first-class auction houses. As for the Tianyao auction house's background, it was quite mysterious, and no one knew its origins. But since it was able to occupy Tianyao City, it was obvious that it had a powerful background. Suyu chuckled. He was quite confident in the heart-refining mortal dust liquid, and he believed that it wouldn't disappoint him. After an hour, Sha'er led Suyu into the auction house's rear palace and to a row of stone houses. There was a long queue in front of each stone house, and a shopkeeper like Sha'er was leading a martial artist into the stone house. Every stone house has an appraiser, and he is quite experienced. He has appraised countless treasures in his life, so he rarely makes a mistake. After martial artists enter one of the houses, they will state their reason for coming here and present their items to them for appraisal. As long as they approve of it, they will submit it to our great appraiser for a final appraisal. If the great appraiser approves of it, they will be able to walk onto the auction stage. On the auction stage, the price of an item will often be raised by more than 30%. Every martial artist hopes that their treasure will be chosen. Sha'er chose a stone house with fewer people and waited quietly. She lowered her voice and said, "Let's appraise the items in front of this appraiser." Most appraisers don't have good tempers. When we enter the house, we must not anger them. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. Appraisers were usually haughty, as they knew things that ordinary people didn't know about, and they felt that they were superior to others. Moreover, the Tinya auction house added a halo to their statuses, and it was inevitable that their tempers were bad. "I understand." Suyu expressed his understanding. This wait lasted for another hour. The appraiser in this stone house was very fast, almost twice as fast as other appraisers. Judging from the expressions of the cultivators who walked out, none of them looked good. Some of them even looked angry. Clearly, they had been bullied. This appraiser seems easy to get along with. Suyu revealed a faint smile. Shar furrowed her beautiful brows and said, "Such a fast appraisal technique. Don't tell me that we've encountered the thousand-hand old immortal?" When Suyu saw Sha'ur's odd expression, he asked, "Is there a problem with this thousand-hand old immortal?" Sha'ur shook her head hesitantly. "There isn't a problem. It's just that the thousand-hand old immortal is famous for his high standards. Few of the treasures appraised by him are chosen by him. In fact, there are some treasures that might be chosen by other appraisers, but they won't stand a chance in his hands." She then added, "Many cultivators hate him. I came here in a hurry, so I didn't ask him about it in time. Let's change to another appraiser." Her bit her lip. In her eyes, Suyu's elixir-type treasures wouldn't be chosen by any appraiser. However, she still tried her best to think for Suyu's sake. "Miss Sha'ur, you are too considerate. It's good that thousand-hand old immortal took a fancy to it, but it doesn't matter even if he didn't. It's my fault that my treasures aren't as good as his." Suyu shook his head with a faint smile. Next, the stone house's door was opened, and a youth, whose face was filled with anger and humiliation, walked out. Suyu smiled at Sha'ur and said, "Wait for me for a moment." After he spoke, he strode into the stone house. The stone house's door was then closed, and a seal was cast upon it. This way, the outside world wouldn't be able to see what was happening inside the stone house. The stone house was brightly lit, and it was brighter than the outside world. A sharp-faced old man was sitting casually in front of a stone table. He looked at Suyu coldly and spoke mechanically. "Take out the item you want to sell." Such a stiff attitude wasn't good for him. It was easy to see elixir powders and ingredients scattered around the stone table. There were many precious items among them. It seemed like some treasures had been swept away by brute force and had been scattered around by accident. Suyu nodded, then quietly took out a jade box from his pocket. It was purple. It was beautiful. It was the failed heart refining mortal dust liquid, and it could be considered a defective product. It didn't even have 60% of the medicinal power of a successful product. "This is the item I want to sell. It's a liquid elixir. Please have a look at it." Suyu placed it on the stone table. Thousand-hand old immortal furrowed his brows when he heard that it was a liquid elixir. He then said, "How dare you bring a liquid elixir to the Tinya auction house? I despise people who try to rely on their luck the most." Suyu didn't get angry, and he just stood calmly at the side, ignoring his complaints. Even though thousand-hand old immortal was complaining, he still carried out his duty and opened the jade box to examine its medicinal power. As soon as it was opened, a fragrant smell that refreshed one's soul assaulted their nostrils. Thousand-hand old immortal furrowed his brows slightly and asked, "A liquid elixir that can nourish one's mind and calm one's mind?" The defective elixir's fragrance wasn't pure, and if one didn't examine it carefully, they would just assume that it was something that could nourish one's mind. It was only when one examined it carefully that they discovered that the elixir's fragrance affected one's soul. Thousand-hand old immortal expressionlessly took out a drop of the liquid elixir and placed it on a precise magical artifact to examine it. After a long while, he said, "It also has a medicinal power that can increase a middle-stage fairy's cultivation. Judging from its combination, it can nourish one's mind and calm one's mind, while it can also increase one's cultivation. It's a compound elixir." He was able to discern the heart-refining mortal dust liquid's dual medicinal powers in a short time. So he wasn't a mediocre person. However, his examination method was too hasty, and he didn't examine the elixir's fragrance deeply. In the end, it was because he looked down on Su Yu's heart-refining mortal dust liquid that he didn't examine it carefully. It was no wonder that his examination speed was twice as fast as other appraisers. Judging from its combination, it's a middle-grade spirit elixir that can increase one's cultivation. It also has other effects, and it's pretty good among elixirs of the same grade. Thousand-Hand Old Immortal raised his head and spoke calmly. However, you still dare to take a defective elixir that failed to be refined and appraised by me? Take your things and get lost. Thousand-Hand Old Immortal snorted disdainfully, then waved his sleeves and swept away the jade box on the stone table. Anger flickered in Su Yu's eyes, but it quickly disappeared, and he managed to catch the jade box in time. Even though he managed to catch it, 2 drops of it still splashed out and fell on the stone table, which was filled with miscellaneous items. It was only now that Su Yu understood why there were so many precious materials and elixir powders scattered around his stone table. He also finally understood why so many people had left in anger. Chapter 849. After all, even though the heart-refining mortal dust liquid was a defective product, it was still very valuable. Thousand Hands Old Xian's behavior was really infuriating. So you took the jade box and looked at him calmly. He then turned around and left without uttering a single word. He wasn't worried that the heart-refining mortal dust liquid would be unknown. After all, as long as someone was patient enough to examine it, they would be able to discover its true medicinal power, which was the tempering of one's soul. This was a spirit elixir that could make people go crazy. Since the Tinyao auction house didn't have such a discerning eye, Su Yu decided to just send it to the other 3 auction houses. As long as he could make the heart-refining mortal dust liquid famous, it didn't matter who he sold it to. Su Yu wore a calm expression as he walked out of the stone house. Sha who was waiting beside him, asked delightedly, "Old mister, did your spirit elixir pass the appraisal?" None of the martial artists who had come out of Thousand Hands Old Xian stone house were as calm as Su Yu. Su Yu shook his head. Thousand Hands Old Xian has a high standard, and the spirit liquid I took out couldn't catch his eye. Sha-er's pretty face darkened. She forced a smile and comforted Su Yu. "It's all my fault. If I had taken you to another appraiser, you might have gotten a better result." Su Yu had a good impression of this young girl, so he threw her a small pouch and said, "You have done your best. I will go to the other auction houses." Sha-er subconsciously grabbed the small pouch and opened it. 10 sparkling crystals were squeezed together. Old mister." Sha-er was startled, and her body shivered. "It's a reward for your hard work." Su Yu waved his hand at her and left the auction house. As a shop assistant, it was not that she had never heard of generous cultivators who would reward the maidservants they served. However, they would usually reward them with crystal shards. Complete crystal shards were very rare. Only outstanding shop assistants who had come into contact with important customers would have the opportunity to reward 10 crystal shards in one go. Sha-er was pleasantly surprised. She knew that she had run into a generous person, so she quickly chased after him and accompanied him to the Tinyao auction house. "Old mister, thank you for your reward. I will never forget it." Sha-er's eyes were filled with gratitude. Su Yu shook his head with a smile. "Crystals are just worldly possessions, so you don't need to care about them. By the way, which of the other 3 auction houses is run by the Red Blood Palace?" After all, he was still a disciple of the Red Blood Palace, and he wouldn't be bullied in the Red Blood Palace's auction house. Sha-er quickly said, "It's the Scarlet Blood auction house. It's not far from here. I'll take you there." Su Yu smiled and pointed at the leaflets in her hand, which she had yet to finish distributing. "You should attend to your own matters first. We will meet again someday." With that, he disappeared into the sea of people. In the Tinyao auction house's rear hall, it was noon, and the appraisers had to rest. However, the appraisers couldn't relax, because it was time for the great appraisers to patrol and inspect treasures during working days. The great appraiser would enter the stone houses one by one to question them personally. Therefore, this was the most nervous moment for all the Horizon appraisers. If the Grand Appraiser was displeased, he had the authority to fire the appraiser who failed to meet his requirements. The Great Appraiser had a very good reputation, and other auction houses would rarely take in appraisers who were fired by him. It was almost as if he could cut off an ordinary appraiser's livelihood in Tinya City with just one sentence. At this moment, all the appraisers were on high alert as they waited for the Grand Appraiser to arrive. The same was true for Thousand Hands Old Cien. He sat upright and still, and tried his best to put on a serious and attentive look. Creak! When the stone house opened, Thousand Hands Old Cien's heart tightened. The Great Appraiser had come to his place. Thousand Hands, how is it? Have you found any valuable items for sale? An old man with white hair and a youthful complexion walked into the room. His eyes were very sharp. Thousand Hands Old Cien promptly stood up and said in a meticulous manner, reporting to Great Appraiser, there is currently no item of high value. This subordinate is incompetent. The old man helplessly shook his head. Thousand Hands, I know that you have high standards and disdain for ordinary items, but if there's a good item, then just muddle through. Recently, the auction house has been a bit sluggish, and there is a lack of high-quality items. Qin Shou said stubbornly, Great Appraiser, I think that ordinary goods aren't qualified to enter our Tinya auction house, and this is an insult to us. So, I think that it's better to have nothing than to have something substandard. I believe that as long as it's truly valuable, it won't be able to escape my eyes. The old man stared at Thousand Hands and nodded. It seemed like he agreed with him. Even though this person was arrogant, he was really skilled, but he was too stubborn. The old man didn't try to persuade him any further, and he just nodded and left with his hands clasped behind his back. The stone house's door opened, and a cool breeze blew into it, sweeping away the room's aura. The Great Appraiser, who had just reached the door's threshold, suddenly stopped, and his nostrils flared. Surprise flickered in his eyes, and he couldn't help but stop. He stared at Thousand Hands Old Cien and faintly smiled. Thousand Hands, did you plan to wait until the evening patrol to give me this surprise? Thousand Hands Old Cien was taken aback, and he asked in confusion, Great Appraiser, please speak frankly. The Great Appraiser couldn't help but laugh heartily. Do you think that you can hide it from me? There is an unfamiliar elixir's fragrance in this room, and it's a brand new elixir's fragrance that I've never seen before. Moreover, I discovered that it seems to have a slight effect on my soul. Quickly take it out. I've been appraising elixirs for dozens of years, and this isn't the first time that I've seen an elixir that can strengthen one's soul. However, I've only seen it twice, and all of those elixirs are precious and heaven-defying, peerless great elixirs that even all creation old monsters would fight over. You unexpectedly received such an elixir? The Great Appraiser's eyes shone with a bright light. Thousand Hands Old Cien was startled when he heard this. This was an elixir that could strengthen one's soul. He had been an appraiser for more than 100 years, and he had only seen such elixirs in ancient books. Such elixirs were extremely rare, and it was difficult to find them in this world. So, how could they appear in a stone house? Great Appraiser, are you joking with me? If I really found such an elixir, I would have reported it to you, Thousand Hands Old Cien said in surprise. The Great Appraiser's smile stiffened, and he stared at Thousand Hands Old Cien with narrowed eyes. Thousand Hands, did you embezzle such an elixir? It wasn't as if something like this hadn't happened before. When an appraiser discovered that a martial artist treasure was extremely precious, he would covet it and take it for himself. If such a matter was discovered, the Tinya auction house would surely kill him. The Great Appraiser was quite confident in his sense of smell, but Thousand Hands Old Cien was acting suspiciously. Thousand Hands Old Cien was startled, and he knelt down on one knee as he said, I don't dare to do such a thing. Great Appraiser, I'm willing to cooperate with you and conduct a body search. The Great Appraiser was startled by this, and when he saw that Thousand Hands Old Cien didn't seem to be putting on an act, he was flabbergasted. All of a sudden, his gaze fell on a pile of miscellaneous items beside the stone table, and it seemed as if he had discovered something. He quickly took 2 steps forward and swept his gaze around the room. His gaze then fixed on 2 drops of purple liquid that were about to dry up. His eyes shone as he said, "It's this thing." Thousand Hands, old Cien followed his gaze, and he was at first bewildered, but he was soon horrified and bewildered. The great appraiser pinched a trace of the dried liquid with his finger and placed it before his nose. He sniffed it, and a comfortable feeling transmitted from the depths of his soul. His soul started to float, and it even faintly felt as if it had become more solid. "It's this. It's an ancient elixir, the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. It's purple, and it's an ancient elixir that can strengthen one's soul and cultivation at the same time." The great appraiser's eyes were filled with shock, and he was visibly moved. Even though he didn't have such an elixir's recipe, he was still familiar with its description. What? The heart-refining mortal dust liquid. Thousand Hands, old Cien, who also knew about this famous elixir, turned pale with fright. What? The great appraiser's expression was ice-cold, and he suddenly turned around and said, "Tell me, where is the elixir? If you don't hand it over, I'll send you to the punishment hall immediately, and your life will no longer be in your hands there." Plop! Thousand Hands, old Cien was so scared that his legs turned to jelly, and his face became as pale as a sheet of paper. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and he hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. "Great appraiser, please have mercy on me. I really didn't hide the elixir." "Humph! I think you won't shed a tear until you see your coffin. How dare you be greedy for such a thing? Guards!" The great appraiser sneered. At this moment, Thousand Hands, old Cien didn't dare to hide anything, and with a sad face he said, I've returned the elixir, and that customer took it and left." "What?" The great appraiser was shocked, and he suspected that Thousand Hands, old Cien was lying. He had rejected such a heaven-defying ancient elixir as a substandard one. Thousand Hands, old Cien said hurriedly, "This matter is absolutely true. He was brought back by a maidservant, and the maidservant can testify whether or not he successfully consigned the elixir for sale." The great appraiser was startled and angered. "You can't do anything right. You unexpectedly misjudged an ancient elixir. You will have to reevaluate your ability later." At this moment, Thousand Hands, old Cien felt miserable. He was proud and arrogant, and he felt that his appraisal techniques were outstanding, so it was inevitable that he would be careless in his appraisal. In all these years, no treasure had ever flown away from his hands, but today he had been careless, and he had misjudged an extremely precious ancient spirit elixir. As he thought of this, he regretted his actions. If he had been slightly more serious, he would have been able to discern that the purple elixir in the jade box was the legendary ancient spear elixir, the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. This was all because of his carelessness. Even if this matter was forgotten, it would still leave a dark history in the Tinya auction house's records. Although the Tinya auction house wouldn't fire an appraiser just because of a single mistake, his reputation would still be tarnished in the future. When did that person leave? The great appraiser, who had witnessed the heart-refining mortal dust liquid's shocking effects, wasn't willing to give up. Thousand Hands, old Cien's eyes lit up, and he said hurriedly, 1 hour ago. Where did he go? The great appraiser looked at him with a threatening gaze. A bitter expression appeared on Thousand Hands, old Cien's face, and he wondered, how could I possibly know? However, just after this, a thought occurred to him, and he said, "Oh, that's right. The maidservant who brought him here might know about it. When the stone house was opened, I saw her leading him out." The great appraiser's eyes lit up, and he asked, "Which maidservant was it? Do you remember her?" Thousand Hands, old Cien nodded repeatedly. "I remember. That maidservant came here very diligently, and she often brought people here. I think her name is Shah." The great appraiser's expression changed, and he said, "Hurry up and summon Shah." Chapter 850. Senior Brother, may I ask why you came to our auction house? A shrewd envoy, who was in his early 20s, revealed a friendly smile upon learning from Su Yu's clothes that he was from the Red Blood Palace. When he saw that Su Yu looked old, he naturally addressed him as Senior Brother. He was completely unaware of Su Yu's true age. Suyu revealed a faint smile and said, I have something that I want to sell in our factions auction house. Junior brother, please lead the way. I see. Senior brother, please follow me. The envoy didn't neglect Suyu. They were all members of the Red Blood Palace, so they should take care of each other. When they reached the auction house's back hall, they found that it was similar to the Tianyao auction house. There was a long queue outside, several heavily guarded secret rooms. They were all martial artists who had come to sell their goods, and they were all patiently waiting for the appraisers inside the secret rooms to appraise their goods. However, compared to the Tianyao auction house, there were less than half of them. The more famous an auction house was, the higher the price it could fetch for an item. The martial artists understood this, so they naturally knew how to choose. In fact, many of them had tried to sell their goods in the Tianyao auction house, but they had been rejected. They had no choice but to bring their rejected items to the Red Blood Palace's auction house to try their luck. This was the reason why the Red Blood Palace's auction house rarely got any good items. Instead, most of them were substandard items that weren't qualified enough. The Red Blood Palace's auction house was quite helpless about this, but they couldn't do anything about it. If they were rejected, they would have even fewer items to choose from. Suyu waited quietly at the end of the queue, and it was only after an hour had passed that it was his turn. After he entered the secret room, the stone door was immediately covered by a powerful seal, and the people outside couldn't see what was going on inside. So you didn't expect that there were two appraisers in the secret room, not just one. They were both of the same age, and both of them were old men. They both had calm temperaments, and they didn't have the restlessness of the Tianyao auction house's appraisers. When Suyu entered the room, he saw that the two of them were chatting. I wonder if the other appraisal rooms got any good auction items. Our appraisal room didn't get anything today, so I hope that it won't affect the auction that will take place in 3 days. I hope so. 3 days later, the Deputy General Manager will come for an inspection, and he will personally participate in the auction. If I don't have anything worthy to show, I will inevitably be reprimanded by the Deputy General Manager. If that's all, it would be fine, as it's impossible for an auction house to auction treasures all the time, and I believe that the Deputy General Manager won't vent his anger on our auction house because of this. But the issue is that the Central Prefecture's faction's greatest demonic beast material store, restaurant, and elixir store consigned 3 top-notch treasures to our Red Blood Palace's auction house. Even though they are from the Central Prefecture, and they obviously oppose our Red Blood Palace, they didn't send them to the greatest Tianyao auction house. Instead, they sent them to our Red Blood Palace's auction house. This is why the Deputy General Manager decided to come here and participate in the auction in 3 days. That's right. Recently, the Central Prefecture's 3 factions have been suppressing our Central Prefecture's industries, and it's clear that they came to our auction house on purpose to show their power. I heard that the price and quality of those 3 items far surpass our Red Blood Palace's similar items. They probably want to use such a humiliating method to launch 3 brand new items in one go, so that they can further occupy the market. It's really a pity that our Red Blood Palace's resources are limited, and we can't compete with the Central Prefecture's vast land and abundant resources. We can't contend against them, and we can only hope to quickly get some good items to compete against them and offset their advantage. It's just 3 days, so how could it be so easy? Our Red Blood Palace's 3 industries leading shopkeepers really don't live up to expectations. The restaurant and demonic beast material stores are still doing well, as they are all trying their best to find new goods in hopes of breaking out of this situation. But I heard that the elixir store's great shopkeeper Fei had just been reprimanded by the Deputy General Manager, and he immediately held a meeting to squeeze the other small and middle-grade elixir stores. He didn't even think about how to contend against the Central Prefecture's elixir stores, and he just bullied his own people. It seems to me like our Red Blood Palace's elixir stores will be the first to fall. This matter has already spread among the Red Blood Palace's elixir stores, and I have also heard about it. Great shopkeeper Fei is just drinking poison to quench his thirst, and he will eventually harm the Red Blood Palace's elixir industry. The 2 men sighed, and it was only after a long while that they stopped talking about this topic and looked at Suyu, who had just walked in. When they discovered that the person who had just walked in was wearing a blue robe, which was the Red Blood Palace's uniform, their expressions became gentler, and they revealed a faint smile as they asked, "Are you a Red Blood Palace's disciple?" Suyu cupped his hands at them, then took out his identity badge and said, "Yes, I'm an Outer Sanctum's disciple, and I want to sell some items in our faction's auction house." The two men took a look at Suyu's identity badge, and after they ascertained that it wasn't fake, they became even more amiable. "Since you are our faction's disciple, we will surely appraise it carefully, but don't expect us to go easy on you." Suyu chuckled. "I don't dare, so please appraise it, seniors." As he spoke, Suyu took out a jade box which contained the substandard heart refining mortal dust liquid. A new type of elixir liquid? The two men's eyes lit up. The Red Blood Palace's auction house was in great need of good elixirs, which was why they attached great importance to such an item. If they couldn't find a new type of elixir, then the Red Blood Palace's expression would surely become unsightly during the auction. That's right. Suyu revealed a faint smile. As long as the two men weren't as arrogant as Thousand Hands Old Cien, they would surely discover the heart refining mortal dust liquid's amazing features. The appraiser on the left side raised his head and revealed a faint smile as he asked, "Lad, did you hear some news? Is that why you brought this new type of elixir liquid?" Any Red Blood Palace's member who is slightly scheming would try his best to obtain a new type of elixir liquid in order to compete with the new elixir liquid that would be released by the Central Prefecture's elixir stores in 3 days. Once they succeeded, they would surely get a great reward from the Red Blood Palace. Suyu shook his head blankly. "I don't know." The two men were skeptical, but they didn't probe further. The appraiser on the left side said, "Let's appraise it one after another. I'll appraise it once, and he'll appraise it once. This is the only way we can ensure that a good treasure won't be missed due to the carelessness of an appraiser. If you're sure that you want us to appraise it, we can start now." Suyu nodded inwardly. Compared to the Tinao auction house, the Red Blood Palace's auction house was really more responsible. "We can start now." Suyu revealed a faint smile. The two men nodded. The appraiser on the left side opened the jade box, and a refreshing fragrance assaulted his nostrils. Suyu was slightly surprised. Refreshing. After he mulled it over for a moment, he took out a drop of the elixir liquid and appraised it carefully. After a long while, he said in surprise, "Well, its main effect is to increase one's cultivation. It seems like its effects aren't bad, and it's on par with the best middle-grade spirit elixirs on the market. Not bad. It's a good item." He had a good opinion of this item, but a trace of disappointment flickered in the depths of his eyes. If he had taken it out before, it might have been able to attract some attention in the auction house. But it wouldn't be able to compete with the new elixirs released by the Central Prefecture's elixir stores in the auction that would take place in 3 days. The appraiser on the left side said regretfully, "My appraisal results are as follows. It's a middle-grade elixir liquid, and its medicinal power can increase one's cultivation. Its effects are above average, and its side effect is refreshing." He then pushed the jade box toward the appraiser on the right side and said, "Old you appraise it." In fact, his experience was greater than Old Yu's. Usually, Old Yu would appraise the items that he had appraised before, and there wouldn't be much difference between the two. Old Yu would often appraise it in passing and go through the process. However, this time, Old Yu was acting out of character, and he stared at the jade box thoughtfully. He didn't start appraising it even after a long while. After hesitating for a long while, Old Yu spoke with uncertainty. "Old son, do you remember an ancient elixir recipe that you mentioned to me a month ago? It seems like its color and effects are somewhat similar." Old son was startled, and a thoughtful look appeared on his face. When he glanced at the jade box again, his eyes flickered slightly. "Are you talking about the Lost Heart refining mortal dust liquid?" Old Yu shook his head. "I'm not sure, but it's somewhat similar. After all, it's something that disappeared in the ancient times. Although the elixir recipe might still exist, the heartbroken zither grass is an extinct item, and it's impossible for it to be refined in this era." Old son thought for a while, and then grabbed the jade box again. "Let's appraise it again. We can't let go of any possibility. This is the basic quality of an appraiser." As an appraiser, he had to be rigorous. He started to appraise the elixir again, but this time, the scope of the appraisal was no longer the direction of improving one's cultivation. Instead, it was the refreshing fragrance. This time, he made a bold move and swallowed a drop of the elixir himself. They dared to do this when they weren't sure whether the elixir was poisonous, which showed their professionalism. As the elixir entered his body, pure energy seeped into his limbs and bones, and the genuine qi in his dantian became even purer. However, the effect didn't stop there. At this moment, his soul felt a slight burning sensation. Old Sun's expression changed subconsciously, as he thought that it was something harmful. But then, his expression changed dramatically again, and he was overjoyed. This was because he could clearly feel that after the elixir's power dissipated, his soul seemed to have become ethereal, and he could faintly feel that his soul had become stronger than before. His body trembled slightly, and his face was full of ecstasy. His eyes were fixed on the jade box, and they shone with a bright light. It can't be wrong. It's it. It's it. The ancient elixir liquid, the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. It's purple, and it's in the form of liquid. It can improve one's cultivation, and most importantly, it can greatly enhance one's soul power if it's consumed over a long period of time. This is really the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. Old Yu's expression changed greatly. Really? While he was shocked, he also took out a drop and swallowed it. After a while, he suddenly opened his eyes, which were full of ecstasy and shock. My soul power has improved. It's really the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. As appraisers, they had seen countless treasures in their lives, and they had seen more than most divine masters. Their experience was unparalleled. However, it was rare for them to be this excited and agitated. This was because it was an ancient elixir that shouldn't exist in this world, and it was a top-grade spirit elixir that could improve one's soul. Although it was only a middle-grade spirit elixir, and it was only effective for fairy realm experts, if news of it spread, even divine masters would go crazy for it. Even if it could only increase a divine master's soul power by a small amount, it would still be worth it. The two appraisers couldn't calm down even after a long while, and they couldn't help but look at Su Yu, their eyes shining brightly. Do you know the name of this elixir liquid? Su Yu revealed a faint smile. The heart-refining mortal dust liquid. After confirming that it was really the elixir, the two of them took a deep breath. They looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. They knew that there would be a good show to watch at the auction in 3 days. Chapter 851. Su Yu shook his head. Senior, you must be joking. How could an outer sanctum disciple like me make this elixir? Upon hearing this, they exchanged a glance and couldn't help but feel disappointed. After all, if an outer sanctum disciple had such an ability, why would he still be in the outer sanctum? He would have been recruited into the inner sanctum, nurtured and protected. Seniors, I recently took over the position of the shopkeeper of one of the elixir stores in the Red Blood Palace. A mysterious old man came to my store last night and asked me to hand it over to the auction house. If this item can be auctioned at the price he wants and attract attention, he is willing to give me the heart-refining mortal dust liquid at any time and sell in my store. What? Disappointment flashed across their faces and was replaced by surprise. Is what you said true? Su Yu cupped his hands at them and said, Every word I said is true. Ha! Great! Heaven has blessed our Red Blood Palace's elixir stores. I will report this matter to the higher-ups. Lad, come with me to meet the higher-ups. They will surely be interested in you. Old Sun and Old Yu were extremely excited. They had obtained this elixir liquid at the last moment, and they could definitely give the Central Prefecture's elixir stores a slap in the face at the auction house in 3 days. Su Yu's eyes flickered as he said, That won't be necessary. I don't know much about that mysterious old man, so I won't be able to explain it to the higher-ups. As long as our Red Blood Palace's auction house can make this item famous, I believe that old man will keep his promise. At the same time, Su Yu took out another complete heart-refining mortal dust liquid and said, I have another one here, and it's a finished product. The one you just used was a defective product. You can take it out at the auction house. The two old men's eyes lit up. Is there an even more powerful finished product? Since the defective product is already so amazing, wouldn't the finished product be even more powerful? After receiving the second elixir liquid, Old Sun said, "Since you don't want to meet the higher-ups, we won't stop you. This is the auction house's VIP card. Give it to that old man, and he can use it to watch the auction in the auction house's VIP room. I hope that old man can come and support us." After giving the VIP card to Su Yu, they left the secret room in a hurry. Then, they went to meet the auction house's manager. They went to a plain hall in the depths of the auction house. At this moment, there were two groups of people outside the palace. One group was the Red Blood Palace's guards, while the other group surprised Old Sun and Old Yu. "Old Yu, what happened today? Even the Tianyao auction house's great appraiser has come here." The person beside him seems to be the famous Thousand Hands, Old Xian. Old Sun was surprised by this. People of the same trade were enemies, and they didn't have any dealings with each other. Even if they had dealings with each other, they would be low-level people. As for the Tianyao auction house's great appraiser, he wasn't a low-level person. The captain of the guards outside the door asked, "Are the two elders here to see Palace Master Xiao?" Old Sun withdrew his gaze and nodded. "And please inform the temple master that we have something urgent to report." How could they not understand that the hall master had been troubled by this matter recently? If he knew that he had found such a treasure, he would definitely be overjoyed. The captain hesitated for a moment, then said, "Fine, wait for a moment. I will go and inform them. However, don't hold too much hope, as the palace master is currently meeting with the Tianyao auction house's master." "Master?" Old Sun and Old Yu shuddered, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. The Tianyao auction house's master was a mysterious person, and both his identity and origins were a mystery that couldn't be solved. He rarely showed himself, and even the Tianyao auction house's internal staff couldn't always see him. However, everyone was aware that he was the person in charge of the Tianyao auction house. Why did he come to the Red Blood Palace's auction house personally? The two elders were shocked. The captain of the guards entered the hall, and they saw a man and a woman sitting opposite each other, chatting. They were both middle-aged. The man had dashing eyebrows, bright eyes, and a carefree appearance. He was the Red Blood Palace's auction house's master, Xiao Yao. The woman sitting opposite him was a middle-aged woman with a delicate appearance. She wore a long black dress, and she wore a gentle, elegant, and well-mannered look. "Palace Master Xiao, I've already told you this much, so please return the auction item." The woman spoke leisurely. She wasn't too fast or too slow, but she seemed to have given an order that couldn't be disobeyed. Xiao Yao responded calmly, and he wore a faint smile as he said, "Fairy Ling, you must be joking. We didn't get the heart-refining mortal dust liquid, and even if we did, we wouldn't hand it over to your Tianyao auction house. Aren't you afraid of disgracing your Tianyao auction house by coming here and asking for an auction item?" Fairy Ling didn't get angry, and she replied calmly, "This item appeared in my auction house first, so it should be under the Tianyao auction house's jurisdiction. Is there a problem with that?" Xiao Yao wasn't aware of this matter, and he furrowed his brows as he said, "I don't know why your Tianyao auction house's auction item left your place, but it really isn't in my Red Blood Palace's auction house." After they chatted for a while and ascertained that the Red Blood Palace's auction house didn't get the heart-refining mortal dust liquid, Fairy Ling furrowed her brows and thought to herself, did Shah Erzmaid lie? Or did the old man she mentioned not come to the Red Blood Palace's auction house, but went to another auction house? At this moment, the captain of the guards entered and transmitted a message to Palace Master Xiao. "Palace Master, the appraiser Elder Sun and Elder Yu are here to meet you." Xiao Yao's gaze flickered as he asked, "They should have seen that I'm meeting a distinguished guest, yet they still want to meet me. What's the matter?" Xiao Yao knew his subordinates well, and he knew that they wouldn't be so blind. The captain of the guards replied, "They said that it's an urgent matter, and they must report it to you." "An urgent matter?" Xiao Yao nodded slightly. "Fine, bring them to the side chamber. I'll be there shortly." "Palace Master Xiao, if you have anything to say, you can say it here." Fairy Ling's pretty eyes flickered. It seemed like the two appraisers had an urgent matter to discuss with Palace Master Xiao. Xiao Yao replied calmly, "It's our Red Blood Palace's auction house's internal affairs, so it isn't your place to meddle in them." Upon hearing this, Fairy Ling pursed her lips and chuckled. I don't care about the Red Blood Palace's auction house's internal affairs. I'm just concerned about whether my heart-refining mortal dust liquid has fallen into the hands of the Red Blood Palace's auction house. If the two appraisers aren't talking about the heart-refining mortal dust liquid, I'll withdraw myself. Xiao Yao furrowed his brows slightly, and he was bewildered. This woman had unexpectedly come to him just for the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. Fine, let them come in. Xiao Yao waved his hand. After a short while, the two of them entered. Old Sun and Old Yu looked at Fairy Ling in shock. Is she the Tianyao auction house's master? They didn't expect her to be a woman. What do you want? Xiao Yao asked. The two of them exchanged a glance. Then Old Sun looked at Fairy Ling hesitantly. He then said carefully, Palace Master, we just received 2 auction items. Palace Master, please take a look at them. Xiao Yao was surprised, and his gaze flickered. What are they? The heart-refining mortal dust liquid. Old Sun enunciated each word clearly. Swoosh! When he just finished speaking, 2 pairs of gazes pierced through his body. He saw that Xiao Yao and Fairy Ling were both staring at Old Sun with sharp gazes. Fairy Ling's eyes curved slightly, and she revealed a faint smile. It seems like the Red Blood Palace's auction house really took our Tianyao auction house's item. Xiao Yao was shocked, and his eyes flickered. He still couldn't understand what the heart-refining mortal dust liquid was, and why the Tianyao auction house's master had come here personally to ask for it. The heart-refining mortal dust liquid? What is it? Tell me in detail. Xiao Yao glanced at Fairy Ling out of the corner of his eyes. Old Sun told them everything in detail. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yao's pupils contracted, and shock appeared in his eyes. An ancient elixir that could improve one's soul power really shocked him. He finally understood why Fairy Ling had come here personally. If he could get this elixir recipe and find the person who could refine it, he would have an unparalleled path to wealth. This was an extinct elixir, and it was an ancient elixir recipe that could improve one's soul power crazily. If it was in the hands of a faction, how much wealth would they get? Even if it was sold for a sky-high price, there would still be people who would fight over it crazily. At this moment, even Xiao Yao was tempted, but he restrained himself and asked, Tell me the details. Why did this item appear in our auction house? The 2 old men were confused, but they still replied in a matter-of-fact manner. An outer sanctum disciple called Su Yuxian brought it here for sale. Palace Master, is there a problem with this person? A thoughtful look appeared on Palace Master Xiao Yao's face, and he couldn't help but look at Fairy Ling. Fairy Ling, can you tell me how the heart-refining mortal dust liquid was lost from your Tianyao auction house? An unnatural look appeared on Fairy Ling's face for a moment, but she quickly calmed down and said, Actually, it's nothing. My subordinate was careless and neglected that customer, which caused him to leave. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yao was both annoyed and amused. It turns out that your Tianyao auction house's appraiser is incompetent and made a mistake. Fairy Ling, it's really funny that you came here to ask for it. If this item had been stolen from the Tianyao auction house and sent to the Red Blood Palace's auction house, he would have returned it. However, that person had made a mistake and missed out on such a treasure. Yet he still had the cheek to come here and ask for it. Xiao Yao couldn't possibly agree to it. First, if he agreed to it, it would be tantamount to bowing down to the Tianyao auction house, and it would be too cowardly. That person had come here to bully them, and they wanted to snatch the heart-refining mortal dust liquid by force. Moreover, the Red Blood Palace's auction house was now facing the Central Prefecture's factions, and it was time for them to look for treasures to contend against them. The heart-refining mortal dust liquid was the key, so how could they give it up? As Xiao Yao thought this, he felt quite carefree. The Tianyao auction house had gathered the best appraisers in Tianyao City, and it was only the goods that they looked down upon in the past that would be chosen by their auction house. He didn't expect that they would also make a mistake, and it was even extinct ancient elixir. If news of this spread, they would surely become a laughing stock. Palace Master Xiao, who had been suppressed for a long time, felt quite proud and elated. Fairy Ling said calmly, So you're saying that Palace Master Xiao won't return? Xiao Yao chuckled and said, If Fairy Ling really wants it, It's not impossible. Fairy Ling's eyes lit up. Palace Master Xiao, please state it. If you need any compensation, I can consider it. She implied that she would consider giving the Red Blood Palace's auction house some compensation. Fairy Ling, you must be joking. We're from the same city, so I must give you face. Xiao Yao shook his head. You don't need any compensation. Fairy Ling pursed her lips and revealed a faint smile. Thank you, Palace Master Xiao. Palace Master Xiao chuckled as he took out a black card from his bosom and slapped it on the table. Fairy Ling, as long as you hold this VIP card, you'll be able to bid for the heart-refining mortal dust liquid at the auction in 3 days. Chapter 852. Xiao Yao said calmly. Fairy Ling, since you want it, you can only get it through the auction house. Do you think that you can get it in advance because of your high status? It's a taboo for an auction house to hand it over to an outsider without the owner's permission. Fairy Ling, as the owner of the greatest auction house, you must have forgotten this. In fact, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He was so happy that he couldn't even put into words. Fairy Ling stared at Xiao Yao for a long while before she stood up and said, Thank you, Palace Master Xiao. Fairy Ling grabbed the VIP card on the table and left with an unsightly look on her face. The great appraiser and Thousand Hands, Old Xian, quickly followed her. They lowered their heads and didn't even dare to breathe loudly. After they left the Red Blood Palace, the great appraiser hesitantly asked, Fairy Ling, it's just an elixir, and our Tinya auction house won't be affected by it. So, why is Fairy Ling so obsessed with the heart-refining mortal dust liquid? He didn't understand, as the heart-refining mortal dust liquid could really bring them away to make a fortune, but it was just a drop in the bucket for the Tinya auction house. So, why did Fairy Ling come here in person? I don't care about this way to make a fortune, but how did this person get the extinct heartbroken zither grass? It has already been extinct since ancient times, and it doesn't exist in this world. I just want a living heartbroken zither grass. I'm trying to make a mysterious elixir, and I lack this material. If I can find the person who made it, I'll be able to get the material. It was obvious that this mysterious elixir was very precious to her. The great appraiser suddenly understood. I will go and inquire about the identity of the person who consigned this elixir for sale. Fairy Ling nodded. Okay, but don't alarm this person. He's probably just in charge of consigning it for sale, and the person who made the elixir is another expert. Understood, the great appraiser replied. Moreover, Fairy Ling glanced at the trembling Thousand Hands, Old Xian, and a cold glint flickered in her eyes. Moreover, we need to clean up the appraisers, and we should fire those unqualified mediocre people. The great appraiser's heart shuddered, and he looked at Thousand Hands, Old Xian. His fate had already been decided. Fairy Ling had lost all her face, so how could she not be angry? Understood, the great appraiser cupped his hands at her. In the Red Blood Palace's auction house, Xiao Yao's eyes flickered as he watched him leave. Elder Yu, elder son, you two must maintain close contact with Su Yuxian. Also, dispatch the auction house's experts to protect him in secret. Don't let anything happen to him. Now, Su Yuxian was the only clue to contact the mysterious expert. If he was killed by someone with ulterior motives, it would be over. After Su Yu left the Red Blood Palace, he rushed toward the Tonglin elixir store. This trip had taken much longer than expected, a full day. It was time to go back. He returned to the outer city and arrived at the street where he was. Su Yu raised his brows from afar. The Tonglin elixir store had been destroyed by someone. All the pills had been snatched away, and the counters were all smashed. Qing Lu's face was covered in blood, and he was dragging a martial artist who was moving an alchemy furnace. Little bastard, you still haven't eaten enough punches, right? Get lost. The cultivator had a ferocious expression. He bared his teeth and kicked Qing Lu's abdomen, sending him flying and crashing into the wall. Qing Lu could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. He clutched his abdomen and rolled on the ground, clearly in great pain. Bah, you want to obstruct me with such meager power? He then covered his mouth and spat disdainfully. It's your shopkeeper's fault for daring to offend our 3 murders gang. He's just courting death. He chuckled evilly and was about to turn around to leave. However, when he turned around, a ghost-like person appeared in front of him. This person had no aura at all, and he was caught off guard. Ah! The martial artist let out a sharp cry. When he came back to his senses, he couldn't help but curse angrily. "Are you blind?" Suyu wore a calm look as he replied, "Yes, I'm the blind shopkeeper you spoke of. I obviously don't have eyes." The martial artist was startled, but he soon revealed a hideous smile. "You unexpectedly dared to come out. I assumed that you would hide like a cowardly tortoise and not dare to show yourself. It's good that you came here, as I will take you to see our gang master." As he spoke, he pressed his hand on Suyu's shoulder. He had a level 4 fairy realm cultivation, so dealing with Suyu would be easy. However, before his hand could touch Suyu, a golden light flickered on his wrist, and his whole hand fell off. Just after that, a heart-wrenching pain transmitted over. "Ah, my hand! My hand!" His hand was unexpectedly cut off, and the cut was as smooth as a mirror. His voice came to an abrupt end, as his head was also cut off, and it fell to the ground. As a golden light flickered, a small golden sword went back into Suyu's sleeves. Suyu disregarded the blood on the ground and the frightened gazes of the onlookers as he went into the store and surveyed the surroundings. Shock appeared in Qing Lu's eyes. The person killed by Suyu was one of the 3 Murders Gang's top 10 martial artists, who were all extremely vicious and evil. In the outer city, everyone was afraid of him, and there were many people who hated him. However, because of his powerful cultivation, no one dared to speak out against him. He had never expected that he would die in such a way, and he had even been killed by his own shopkeeper. Since he could instantly kill a level 4 fairy realm expert, then how powerful was he? Suyu waved his sleeves and sent a wisp of vital energy into Qing Lu's body to quickly heal his injuries. Qing Lu's pain was instantly reduced by more than half, and his injuries also started healing at a shocking speed. His heart shivered, and he quickly stood up. "Shopkeeper Su, I'm useless, and I didn't manage the store well. Please punish me." Suyu's expression was still calm. "Okay, tell me what happened first." He had only been gone for a single day, yet the store had already been destroyed by someone. It was Qin Zhe. Hatred appeared in Qing Lu's eyes. After he was crippled by the shopkeeper, he asked for help from the 3 Murders Gang, and it was him who brought the 3 Murders Gang's people to destroy the store. He even stole all of the elixirs in the store. In the end, even Ying Luan was captured by them. Suyu's expression became ice-cold. Ying Luan was also captured. Suyu didn't care about ordinary elixirs, so it wouldn't matter if he stole them. However, Ying Luan was a shopkeeper. It was done by the 3 Murders Gang's deputy master. He captured Ying Luan and demanded that the shopkeeper bring 1,000 crystals to redeem her. Otherwise, he would let her be killed by the 3 Murders Gang's members. Qing Lu spoke angrily. Killing intent flickered in Suyu's eyes. The 3 Murders Gang didn't come here to take revenge for Qin Zhe. After all, how could a crippled person, whose cultivation was low, deserve the 3 Murders Gang's revenge? They must have heard from Qin Zhe that the new shopkeeper was quite wealthy, so they wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to rob him. When Qing Lu discerned that Suyu intended to kill him, he said hurriedly, "Shopkeeper, please calm down. Please contact the Red Blood Palace's headquarters and send someone to negotiate with the 3 Murders Gang. The 3 Murders Gang has many members, and it has many experts." He then added, "The Deputy Master, who is ranked 2nd, has a level 9 fairy's power, while the Great Master is rumored to have reached the Divine Master Realm. Moreover, they are quite familiar with the outer city's terrain, so there aren't any factions that can exterminate them. The Red Blood Palace tried to exterminate them in the past, but it ended in failure, and they even lost the Divine Master Expert." He then added, "After this incident, the matter was left unsettled. As long as they don't cause trouble in the inner city, no one will care about them. The 3 Murders Gang has already become the outer city's ruler, and no other dark faction can survive here, as they have all been devoured by it." He then added, "Shopkeeper, you mustn't meet them alone, as they won't keep their promise. They will probably kill you and snatch your spatial ring. Since ancient times, Even a powerful dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. In the outer city, the Three Murders Gang was the local snake, and even factions like the Red Blood Palace couldn't deal with them. Suyu nodded. Okay, I understand. You don't need to worry about the shop for now. Just look for a safe place to hide. I will quickly come back. Swoosh. Suyu asked about the Three Murders Gang's headquarters before he soared into the air and left. After half a cup of tea's time had passed, he reached the outer city's central region. There was a dilapidated arena there, and it was quite deserted. If one looked at it from above, they could clearly see that there were many people guarding it. There were at least several thousand people there. The arena was located in an open area, so the invaders could be clearly seen. So he was slightly surprised by this. Wouldn't it be difficult for one to escape if one was surrounded by people in such a place? Why were so many factions unable to exterminate them? Suyu's eyes flickered, while a faint silver light flickered in them. The whole arena became three-dimensional in Suyu's eyes, and he could see the situation inside with just a single glance. After he observed it, Suyu suddenly understood what was going on. The area beneath the arena had already been completely emptied. There were many complicated tunnels, which spread in all directions. As long as one could hide in them, then no matter how many soldiers there were on the ground, they wouldn't be able to encircle them. After a rough count, Suyu found that there were more than 100 tunnels, which could accommodate more than 1,000 people. It was no wonder that they had failed so many times. If they did not know the details of the underground, it would have been useless no matter how many times they attacked. However, it was a pity that they had run into Suyu. Suyu immediately started looking for Ying-Wan. With his transparent eyes, he would be able to find her no matter how well she hid herself. After a short while, Suyu discovered Ying-Wan's existence. She was hidden in an underground cage, and there were several other people with her. It seemed like they were also hostages captured by the Three Murders Gang. The Three Murders Gang's business is really extensive, as they are able to make such a great profit without any capital. Suyu sneered coldly. If it hadn't provoked him, he wouldn't have bothered to attack them. But, since they had run into his hands, he would surely dispose of them. Suyu swept the other hostages one by one to ascertain whether there was an ambush among them. Suddenly, Suyu's gaze locked onto one of the hostages. She had a short and thin stature, and she was wearing a purple-black pleated long skirt. Her face was tender and adorable, and she seemed like a porcelain doll. She had a pair of big, round, and bright eyes, which were quite clear, as if she didn't know anything about the world. However, if one observed her carefully, he would discover that a crafty glint flickered in her eyes from time to time. So he was startled by this. Gongsun Wuxia. He thought that he had misjudged her, but after he observed her carefully, he ascertained that she was the little demoness. How is this possible? Isn't she in the sanctum? Why is she in Tianya City, and why was she captured by the Three Murders Gang? Suyu was startled. However, Suyu quickly shook his head. After all, it was only the little demoness who tricked others, and it was impossible for her to be tricked by others. This was especially the case at this moment, when the little demoness revealed a harmless and sweet face. Suyu was sure that she was plotting something. After Suyu mulled it over for a moment, he decided that he wasn't in a hurry to save her. With the little demoness abilities, if she wanted to escape, she would have done so long ago. Hence, he guessed that she was probably plotting something. Moreover, Ying-Wan was safe for the time being, so he didn't need to worry about her. Chapter 853. Several hours passed, and the Three Murders Gang's members entered the secret room one after another. They had the newest hostages write letters to their families. The last one was Gongsun Wuxia's turn. She seemed to have just entered not long ago. "Uncle, please let me go." Tears streamed down Gongsun Wuxia's face, and she looked as innocent and pitiful as a little lamb. The person who came in was a middle-aged man in his early 20s. He looked Gongsun Wuxia up and down, and a lustful look appeared in his eyes. Gongsun Wuxia was born beautiful and adorable. She was a beauty in the making, and coupled with her pitiful and delicate appearance, it made her even more lovable. "Little beauty, give uncle a kiss, and I'll let you go. How about it?" The middle-aged man smiled evilly and reached out to touch her smooth white face. Gongsun Wuxia shrank back and cried out in fear, "Uncle, don't. My family has a lot of money, and I can give you as much as you want." The middle-aged man chuckled and said, "This little girl's family is rich, but can they be richer than our three murders gang? As long as you listen to Uncle, I'll let you go immediately." There were many people in the gang who were interested in this sweet and lovely little girl. Half a day ago, this little girl had gotten lost in the outer city, and a member of the gang had discovered her. He had deceived her and brought her to the three murders gang. He had imprisoned her and planned to sell her for a good price. Such a pure and lovely, beautiful girl was worth a lot of money. Gongsun Wuxia cried and said, "My family runs an auction, and we are very rich." Auction? The middle-aged man was shocked. He retracted his hand and licked his lips. His eyes flashed with excitement. Auction? Which auction? Tianyao Auction House. Gongsun Wuxia cried. The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. Tianyao Auction House? You aren't lying? When Gongsun Wuxia saw that she could be saved, she immediately took off the pendant on her neck and handed it to him. "This is my keepsake, and as long as you bring it to the Tianyao Auction House, they will be able to verify my identity. As long as you don't harm me, the Tianyao Auction House will give you as many crystals as you want." The middle-aged man grabbed the pendant. The pendant was fiery red, and it looked like a fiery redbird. It contained traces of flame power. "This fire essence jade?" The middle-aged man gasped. This pendant was surprisingly refined from the extremely precious fire essence jade. Fire essence jade was born from extremely hot flames. This fire was usually not a reverse fire, but a terrifying fire that had been burning for hundreds of years. Even an all-creations expert would not dare to enter this kind of flame easily. The fire essence jade was a peerless jade essence that was formed after hundreds of years of tempering in such terrifying flames. The fire marrow inside was liquid and also the essence of fire. A single drop was worth 1,000,000 crystal stones. Within the fire essence jade, one could see with the naked eye that there was a drop of jade essence rolling within. Just this pendant alone was worth 1,000,000 crystals. The middle-aged man simply couldn't believe that the little girl in front of him possessed such a heaven-defying treasure. When he looked at Gongsun Wuxia again, it was as if he was looking at a crystal mine, and his eyes shone brightly. He knew what kind of reward he would receive if he presented this item to the faction leader. Although he really wanted to keep the fire chalcedony for himself, he understood that if he really did that, he would definitely not be able to escape the three murders gang's pursuit. Hence, the wise man decided to present this item to the faction leader in exchange for trust and rewards. Perhaps he could even be promoted. He left the dungeon excitedly and rushed toward the faction leader's location through the complicated tunnels. The bitter Gongsun Wuxia stopped crying, and a smug and sly smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. Humph! He took the bait so easily. It's really not challenging at all. In the dungeon, before the shocked gazes of the hostages, Gongsun Wuxia wiped away her tears and threw her two braids behind her head. She clasped her hands behind her back, raised her head, and kicked open the dungeon's door. The people behind her couldn't help but be shocked. Then, their faces lit up with joy, and they all wanted to rush out. However, after Gongsun Wuxia went out, she closed the door again and rolled her eyes at them. "What's the rush? Wait until I take the faction leader's head and complete the task. Then I will let you out. If you come out now, you will only alert the enemy." As she spoke, she clapped her hands and quickly followed behind the middle-aged man, walking back and forth in the complicated underground tunnels. After 5 minutes, the middle-aged man cautiously arrived in front of an inconspicuous and ordinary stone cave. This stone cave was no different from the cave where the ordinary members lived. However, the middle-aged man was extremely respectful, and he stood respectfully in front of the stone door. "Faction leader, I have an important matter to discuss with you." After waiting for a moment, the stone door opened silently, and a cold snort transmitted from inside. "I told you, don't call me faction leader so casually." The middle-aged man was a yes man, and he didn't dare to move. He didn't think much of it, and he thought that his faction leader was too cautious. He was so cautious even in his own territory. "Come in," the person inside said. The middle-aged man entered, and the stone door immediately closed tightly. No one knew that the famous faction leader of the Three Murders gang was actually staying in such an ordinary secret room. If this person hadn't led the way, who would have thought that he would be here? After a short while, a petite figure appeared nearby, stealthily. She wore a sly smile on her small mouth. "Humph, humph, humph. It turns out that you were hiding here. It took me a long time to find you." In the room, a man shrouded in black light sat on a stone bed, and he seemed to be cultivating some powerful demonic technique. "Why are you looking for me?" The man shrouded in black light was the Three Murders gang's faction leader, and he was an extremely mysterious expert. In the past, when a Red Blood Palace's Divine Master had led a group of people to kill him, he had managed to kill that Divine Master's expert. The middle-aged man trembled with fear as he spoke. "Faction leader, we found a member of the Tianya auction house among the hostages, and after I learned about it, I immediately came to report it to you." "A member of the Tianya auction house? Why did they bring their people here?" The faction leader furrowed his brows. "This faction's background is quite mysterious, and I would rather provoke the Red Blood Palace and the Purple Cloud Palace than provoke it. So, what kind of identity did they capture? If it's just an ordinary person, we should just let him go. There's no need to offend the great faction behind the Tianya auction house for a small ransom. If it was an ordinary member, they wouldn't be able to extort a large amount of ransom, and they would easily offend this mysterious faction." Cold sweat seeped out of the middle-aged man's forehead. Does the faction leader mean that it doesn't want to become enemies with the Tianya auction house? He realized that he had probably overreached himself. After hesitating for a while, the middle-aged man took out the fire essence jade pendant and said gravely, "Faction leader, please make a decision. This is the keepsake we found on that member's body. She claims that the Tianya auction house belongs to her family." The faction leader rolled up his sleeves and grabbed the fire essence jade pendant. As he examined it carefully, his expression became grave and his pupils contracted. "It can't be wrong. This is Fairy Ling's keepsake from the Tianya auction house. Who did you capture and bring here?" Anger and killing intent appeared in the faction leader's eyes. "You are just a bunch of fools. You have all committed a grave mistake." Fear and wariness could be heard in his voice. It was as if he was afraid of the Tianya auction house. The middle-aged man knelt on the ground and said, "I don't know either. It was a gang member who deceived her and brought her here." The faction leader was infuriated. "You are just a bunch of good-for-nothings who can't do anything right. If you captured an ordinary member and let her go, we can avoid trouble, and the Tianya auction house won't make trouble for us just for an ordinary member. But since she is Fairy Ling's keepsake, she must be an important member. Even if we let her go now, the Tianya auction house won't let this matter go." A wisp of killing intent appeared on his face as he asked, "Where is she?" Since the matter had already reached this point, he couldn't let her go, and the only way to avoid trouble was to kill her. As long as the Tianya auction house didn't know that she was killed by the Three Murders gang, they wouldn't get into any trouble. When the faction leader's voice just echoed, the middle-aged man suddenly fell on the ground. His eyes were still open, but his limbs were limp, and he couldn't move in the slightest. Only his mouth could move slightly as he cried for help and fright. "Faction leader, save me, save me. I can't move." All of a sudden, the faction leader's black radiance flickered, and his expression changed. "Were you poisoned? What did you get poisoned?" The faction leader suddenly realized something and shouted in a low voice, "It's awful. There is something wrong with the pendant." As he shouted in a low voice, he quickly threw the fire essence jade in his hand. However, it was already too late for him to throw it. The vital energy in the faction leader's body became sluggish, and his whole body became limp and powerless. He then fell on the bed, his limbs stiff, and he couldn't move. He cried out in alarm. "What kind of poison is this? Even an almighty divine master can't resist it." Creak! At this moment, the leisurely sound of stone door opening drifted into his ears. A petite young girl, who had her hands clasped behind her back, walked into the stone room with a smile and said, You reacted quite quickly. Gongsun Wuxia smiled as she picked up the pendant and swept it with her vital energy. A layer of pink mist, which could be seen by the naked eye, was swept away from the pendant's surface. This was the object that had poisoned the faction leader. "Who are you?" The faction leader's pupils contracted as he shouted in a deep voice. The little demoness walked over and revealed a cute and sweet smile. "I'm obviously here to take your life. Don't you know that your life is quite valuable in the Red Blood Palace? It's worth 300,000 merit points, and you are the 18 blessed and Heavenly Land's 13th most wanted criminal, Ghost Buddha. So, you are quite valuable." The expression of the faction leader, whose whole body was engulfed by a black radiance, changed drastically. "How did you know my identity?" The middle-aged man lying on the ground was also startled. "What? Did you just say that our faction leader is the infamous wanted criminal, Ghost Buddha?" There were a series of wanted criminals in the 18 blessed and Heavenly Lands, and all of them were vicious and merciless criminals who killed without batting an eyelid. However, due to their high cultivations, the 18 blessed and Heavenly Lands experts weren't able to capture them in time. This was why the 18 blessed and Heavenly Lands wanted list was issued. Chapter 854. According to the Red Blood Palace's rules, if a Red Blood Palace's disciple killed the Ghost Buddha, who was ranked 13th, he would get 300,000 merit points. This was because he had once killed 3 divine masters in the Red Blood Palace, which had caused a great commotion. However, he had then disappeared without a trace, and no one knew where he had gone. No one would have expected that he was hiding in Tinya City's 3 Murders gang, and even the gang's members didn't know that their gang master was wanted by the 18 blessed and Heavenly Lands. Su Yu, who was observing the situation with his soul eyes, was quite startled. He had heard about the wanted list, as it was a list made by the 18 blessed and Heavenly Lands' 18 great factions. The people on the list were all villains who had committed great crimes, and they posed a great threat to the whole 18 blessed and Heavenly Lands. This was why they were wanted by the 18 great factions. There were 100 people on the list. The Ghost Buddha was ranked 13th, which was quite high. As such, he was rewarded with 300,000 merit points. Suyu couldn't help but get excited. It turned out that there was such a quick way to earn merit points. However, it was a pity that he had to first accept the mission to kill the Ghost Buddha, and only after completing it could he get the Sanctum's reward. So you didn't accept the mission and killed the Ghost Buddha without knowing anything about it, so he wouldn't get any reward. Suyu was quite curious as he looked at the little demoness. The Ghost Buddha had been on the list for several years, and the 18 blessed and Heavenly Lands' 18 great factions disciples must have accepted the mission to kill him. However, even after so many years, they hadn't managed to find even a trace of the Ghost Buddha. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air, never to be seen again. As for the little demoness, even though she was in the Red Blood Palace, she was still able to grasp the situation in Tinya City, which was far away. She had even managed to ascertain the 3 Murders gang's master's identity. Su Yu's intuition told him that this black-bellied lowly wasn't ordinary. In a secret room, the little demoness smiled as she took out a small black sword and played with it. The gang master asked in a deep voice, "Do you want to kill me now?" The little demoness revealed a sweet smile. "I don't want to be stained by your blood." The gang master's eyes lit up. "If you want crystals, you can ask for as many as you want. According to what I know, your Red Blood Palace's merit points can be exchanged for crystals. Since my head is worth 300,000 merit points, I can give you 600,000 crystals, which will be enough for you to exchange for 300,000 merit points. If you want more, we could discuss it." The little demoness said disdainfully, "This grand doesn't care about any crystal stones. Furthermore, if I were to exchange large amounts of merit points in the sect, the source of the crystal stones would be investigated by the sect. If they found out that I released you for the crystal stones, then I would be finished." Su Yu, who had been paying close attention, felt his heart tremble slightly. He had thought of exchanging crystal stones for a large number of merit points more than once, but now it seemed that it would not work. The sect would investigate the legal source of the crystal stones. The gang leader's face darkened. Then what do you want? The little devil smiled, revealing a row of pearly white teeth. Of course, it's to cripple your cultivation, capture you alive, and bring you back to the sect. That way, the merit points will be higher. With that said, the little devil's eyes turned cold. She turned into a shadow and flew in front of He Guang. A dagger fiercely stabbed into the other party's abdomen. The gang leader was poisoned by the little devil and couldn't move at all. How could he avoid this sword? However, a sudden change occurred. Unable to move, the black light on the surface of the gang leader's body faded away like a tide. Instead, a dazzling golden light shot out from his body. When most of the black light dissipated, a strange human appeared in front of him. The left side of his body was pitch black, and wisps of eerie ghost energy were emitting from his body. He seemed ferocious and evil. As for the right side of his body, it flickered with golden light and emitted an auspicious aura. It gave people a serene feeling. Two extreme auras appeared on the same person's body at the same time. At this moment, the little devil's black sword was pierced into his abdomen. However, the expected scene of his abdomen being pierced didn't occur. Instead, a loud clanging sound echoed out, and the sword in the little devil's hand was deflected. The change occurred too quickly, and the little devil was caught off guard. However, she reacted quickly, and when her plan failed, she immediately retreated. At the same time, she took out a white bone shield and placed it in front of her. Just when she was about to put up a defense, a great power bombarded the shield. Shock appeared on the little devil's face, and she retreated several steps, knocking against the stone door. When she looked at the door, she saw that the half-black, half-golden gang leader had already stood up and was slowly lowering his fist. "You aren't poisoned? It's impossible. Brother Shanliang developed it, and even a middle-stage divine master can't block it." The little devil rolled her eyes and spoke in shock. The gang leader sneered coldly and said, "I was poisoned, but you forgot my name. Ghost Buddha. Half ghost, half Buddha. A Buddhist constitution can purify poison. The poison you used just happened to be within the range of my purification." The ghost Buddha said mockingly. As long as he revealed his hidden half-Buddha constitution, he could use his Buddha's light to purify the poison in his body. Although the little devil was clever, she had still taken the ghost Buddha lightly. This person could kill the Red Blood Palace's 3 divine masters in succession and still remain free and unfettered until now, so he was surely not someone easy to deal with. The little devil hadn't investigated the situation thoroughly, and she had acted rashly. The ghost Buddha's cultivation was at the level 1 divine master realm, while the little devil was only at the level 9 fairy realm. Moreover, the ghost Buddha still hadn't used his powerful divine seal. The little devil didn't hesitate, so she turned around and rushed out of the secret room. She then took out a golden sphere and threw it behind her. Rumble. A loud noise echoed as the golden sphere exploded on the spot, emitting a shocking flame. The flame contained a terrifying power, and even a level 1 divine master realm expert wouldn't dare to touch it rashly. The middle-aged man, who was lying motionless on the ground, was turned into nothingness by the flame. He didn't even have time to let out a miserable shriek. The whole secret room was also melted. The powerful flame energy wave didn't just melt the secret room, it also melted the whole row of secret rooms that were connected to it. Dozens of secret rooms, as well as thousands of miles of underground caverns, were all turned into a sea of flames. Miserable screams echoed from all directions, and it seemed like hell on earth. More than 103 Murders Gang's members were burned to death by the sphere alone, and many of them were experts. Even the 3 Murders Gang's deputy gang leader, who was at the level 9 fairy realm, was devoured by the fire dragon before he could rush out of the secret room. Such a disastrous scene alarmed the whole 3 Murders Gang. Regardless of whether it was the fighting arena on the ground or the underground caverns, they were all alarmed. Suyu couldn't help but smack his lips. He knew that sphere. It was a consumable magical treasure called the Diamond Fireball. It was extremely expensive, and a single one of it was worth at least 300,000 crystals. Moreover, the little demoness had a fire essence jade pendant, which was worth 1,000,000 crystals on her neck. Her net worth was surely astronomical. Upon witnessing that the Three Murders gang had descended into chaos, Suyu couldn't delay any longer, so he immediately snuck into the prison. With his skills, as well as the Three Murders gang's current state of chaos, it wouldn't be difficult for him to saving Yuan and the other hostages. After the time it would take to brew half a cup of tea, a group of people walked out of a dark alley, far away from the Three Murders gang. They were Yuan and the other hostages. Suyu surveyed his surroundings and ascertained that it was safe here. He then said to the people behind him, "Fine, we should be safe here, so you should all disperse. If your homes are in the vicinity, you should quickly leave, but if it's far away, you should hide first and send a message to your family's elders to come and welcome you. Do you understand?" The hostages were all young men and women, and they had just gone through a terrifying rescue mission. They were still frightened, and they all nodded like chickens pecking at grains. Yuan followed closely behind Suyu, her eyes filled with adoration as she looked at his back. She had never imagined that shopkeeper Su would attack the Three Murders gang to save her. After all, she was obviously just an insignificant maid. Yuan, don't go back to the elixir store for the time being. Just hide with them first, and come back to the store tomorrow, Suyu instructed her before he soared into the sky and left. The group of young men and women looked for a place to hide, while the few young women who had accompanied Yuan revealed longing looks. "Sister Yuan, who is he to you?" They were all in the same prison, and although they had only been in contact for a short while, they had all gone through trials and tribulations together. "He's our Tonglen Elixir Store's shopkeeper Su." Yuan was timid and bashful, and she bit her lips. "Tonglen Elixir Store?" The eyes of the other young women blinked as they bore this name in mind. After Suyu left, he immediately went back to the Three Murders gang's vicinity to observe the surroundings. After an hour had passed, the disastrous fire had already been extinguished. The entire underground cavern was burnt and reduced to ruins. Charred corpses were dug out one after another. There were dozens of them, but even more corpses had already melted into cooled magma rocks. There were no real corpses left. Suyu swept the area with his gaze and fixed it on the ghost Buddha's secret room. His pupils contracted slightly. In the secret room, a body, which was emitting a black and golden radiance, was standing upright in the room. The black and golden radiance seemed like a bell, which had isolated the terrifying flames and left it unscathed. Suyu shuddered inwardly as he thought, what a powerful, fleshly body. Most level 1 divine masters wouldn't have been able to escape from such an explosion, but the ghost Buddha was the only one who was safe and sound. Since this person was ranked 13th on the wanted list, it was obvious that he was no small matter. It was only after the flames in the secret room had dissipated completely that the ghost Buddha's radiance disappeared. An ice-cold glint flickered in its ice-cold eyes as it said, "What a good red blood palace's disciple. You unexpectedly dared to come here." So you couldn't help but admit that the little demoness was very crafty. She had pretended to be tricked, then pretended to be a core member of the Tinya auction house, then lured the middle-aged man to lead the way. Then, she had run away after her scheme was exposed. However, it was a pity that she had underestimated the ghost Buddha's power, as even the golden fireball wasn't able to harm him. I really want to see how far you can run underground. The ghost Buddha was filled with killing intent as he turned into a ghostly shadow and disappeared from the secret room. Suyu was in control of everything, so he decided to follow the ghost Buddha closely. After the little devil escaped, it didn't even look back as it fled through the underground tunnel. Chapter 855. Some of the outer sanctum's small dark factions were getting restless, and they all wanted to seize this opportunity to divide the Three Murders gang's vast territory. As for the Three Murders gang, it didn't just lose its divine master, who was capable of intimidating the outer city. It also lost its level 9 Fairy Realm deputy gang master. Moreover, more than 100 powerful members near the gang master were killed in a fire, and more than half of the Three Murders gang's apex experts were killed. If they wanted to resist the invasion of the various small factions, it would be a long battle. It could be imagined that in the future, the outer city would return to its previous state of having many dark factions. As long as the inner city wanted to, it could cleanse them at any time and restore the outer city's order. It wouldn't be like it was now, where the Three Murders gang was helpless against such a powerful dark faction. As for Suyu, who was the instigator of all of this, he didn't care about the outside world affairs and just cultivated in the Tonglin elixir store. After he came back the previous night, Suyu tried to get rid of the cursed ghost face several times, but he didn't succeed. Suyu was left without a choice, so he started cultivating the 5 Elements Mysteries art. Once he mastered it, he would be able to control an ancient Imperial Saint artifact. After a whole night's cultivation, Suyu managed to learn 2 more Demon Clan's characters, which meant that he had comprehended 4 of them in total. As long as he continued cultivating, once he comprehended more than 100 Demon Clan's characters, he would be able to use 10% of the 5 Elements Divine Prison's power. This 10th of its power was enough for Suyu to be invincible among those below the all-creation realm. The next day at dawn, Qing Lu and Ying Wan followed Suyu's instructions and waited until the chaos had passed. They were busy cleaning up the elixir store and mending the broken counters. After going through such a calamity, they cherished this rare opportunity even more. After all, not only was their shopkeeper Su generous, but he was also a hermit expert. Ying Wan was even more aware of how powerful Suyu was, as he had managed to sneak into the Three Murders gang and rescue them. She really admired Suyu from the bottom of her heart. Shopkeeper Su, all of our elixirs were plundered by the Three Murders gang. What should we do? Qing Lu and Ying Wan went to the back hall after they finished cleaning the elixir store. Suyu wasn't interested in those elixirs, which couldn't even be considered spear elixirs. Don't worry about it. In a few days, a new type of elixir will be sold, so you should rest more during this period. Qing Lu was startled. Ying Wan said anxiously, Shopkeeper Su, that won't do. The pill store's counter cannot be empty. Suyu raised his brows. Oh, why is that? Ying Wan didn't stutter anymore, and she spoke fluently. According to the Red Blood Palace's elixir store's rules, no elixir store's counter is allowed to be left empty. Otherwise, they will be punished by revoking their shopkeeper's positions. Suyu was surprised. Why haven't I heard of such a rule? He had carefully investigated the elixir store's rules, and he hadn't found such a rule. The Red Blood Palace was only in charge of the final profits, and how the elixir store was managed was the shopkeeper's business. This is the rule of the Elixir Association. Ying Wan then said, a year ago, great shopkeeper Fei gathered all the elixir store shopkeepers to discuss this rule, which states that no elixir store's counter can be left empty. This is a waste of the Red Blood Palace's resources, and once this is discovered, not only will the store's shopkeeper be fined 10,000 crystals by the Elixir Association, but his position as a shopkeeper will also be revoked. She then added, it said that the previous shopkeeper, who came before us, felt that the store didn't have any hope of surviving, so he focused all of his energy on cultivation. He planned to wait until his term was over before leaving the store. However, the counter didn't have any elixirs for sale, and it was left empty for 5 or 6 days. This was reported by other elixir stores, and the previous shopkeeper was punished. He was fined 10,000 crystals, and his position as a shopkeeper was revoked. He was then chased back to the sanctum. Suyu raised his brows slightly. He couldn't believe that there was such an unwritten rule. He really didn't care about these elixirs, but his position as an elixir store shopkeeper was very useful to him, so he couldn't give it up for the time being. Fine, where can I get my elixirs from? Suyu asked. A small elixir store couldn't afford to hire an alchemist to make elixirs for them, so they could only buy them from elixir dealers. Ying Wan revealed a simple and honest smile as she ran to the front desk. She then took out an account book from under the cabinet. The account book recorded the channels through which the previous shopkeepers used to purchase elixirs, as well as the names and locations of their suppliers. Suyu flipped through it carefully. The Tonglin elixir store supplier had cooperated with him for many years, and it was a place called the Bright Moon House. The Bright Moon House's owner, Bright Moon Householder, had cooperated with the Tonglin elixir store for many years. He didn't know how to make elixirs, and his elixirs came from a place called the Elixir Alliance. The Elixir Alliance was the Tinya Auction House's alchemist alliance. Everyone who joined the alliance was an alchemist, and they were all at least middle-stage alchemists. There were also many late-stage alchemists among them, and there were even 2 alchemists who could make incredible elixirs. Incredible elixirs were elixirs consumed by divine master experts, and they were far more difficult to make than spirit elixirs consumed by fairy realm experts. The difference between incredible elixirs and spirit elixirs was like the difference between heaven and earth. Suyu's current state wasn't enough for him to make incredible elixirs. Besides his lack of experience, he also lacked soul power, which was more important. After all, the process of making elixirs at the incredible elixir level wasn't something ordinary people could imagine. Physical contact wasn't allowed in any part of elixir making. This was because the success of incredible elixirs was highly dependent on the environment, and it couldn't tolerate the appearance of human impurities. If one used one's hands or other objects to control the elixir making, it would be easy for the furnace to explode. If one couldn't use physical objects to control the elixir, then what could one use? It was soul power at the mental level. Since physical power couldn't be used, then one could only use soul power. The whole process had to be controlled at the soul level, which involved the use of soul power. It was extremely complicated and difficult, and without a powerful soul to rely on, one couldn't use soul power to make elixirs without long-term practice. This was why alchemists were so precious. There were only 2 alchemists in Tianya City who could make incredible elixirs. Moreover, in the whole 18 blessed and heavenly lands, there were less than 10 alchemists. Among them, there were 3 in the Red Blood Palace's inner palace, 3 in the Purple Cloud Palace, and 2 wandering martial artists. The Elixir Alliance had formed a neutral faction around these 2 alchemists, and they were only in charge of making elixirs. The alchemists would then hand over the elixirs they made to the Elixir Alliance. Because the Dan Alliance was not in the mood to run a shop, he did not have the time to look for buyers, so he sold it to some merchants who were related to the Dan Alliance. These merchants were usually the relatives and friends of the Dan Alliance. Then, the peddlers sold the elixirs to elixir stores all over the Blessed and Enclave. These peddlers were also known as pill peddlers. They relied on the Dan Alliance to survive. If the Dan Alliance collapsed one day, they would have no way to survive. Bright Moon House? Bright Moon Householder? Suyu muttered the name repeatedly. The Tonglin elixir store was small and didn't have a large stock of elixirs, so it didn't bother to look for another supplier. So, it bought all of its elixirs from Bright Moon Householder. Although it would be troublesome, Suyu would still have to go there personally to buy some elixirs from Bright Moon Householder to fill the counter. You should rest for the time being while I go out to buy some goods. Suyu left the Tonglin elixir store and went straight to the Bright Moon House. The so-called Bright Moon residence was actually an ordinary residence in the inner city. If an elixir shop wanted to buy elixirs, the Bright Moon residence was one of the choices. When Suyu was just about to enter the residence, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. He couldn't help but be taken aback and stop outside the residence. At the residence's entrance, a beautiful and dignified figure clad in a green palace dress was walking out while stepping on a lotus flower. A middle-aged scholar wearing a long robe was following her closely. He wore a fawning smile and said in a flattering tone, "Fairy Lu, you can set your mind at ease. If the Elixir Alliance has similar elixirs, I will surely inform you first. As one of the Elixir Alliance's 3 great elixir merchants, I believe that if the Elixir Alliance has such elixirs for sale, they will surely let me sell them." Lu Chi furrowed her brows and nodded indifferently. She then sighed softly and said, "I'm just holding on to a slim hope. You don't need to take it to heart. I'm sorry for bothering you." After she spoke, the beautiful figure strode forward and was about to leave the Bright Moon House. She subconsciously glanced at a corner of the residence's wall, where a person was standing quietly. She had just seen him out of the corner of her eye, but her body shuddered and her beautiful eyes widened. When she looked over, her heart thumped wildly. It's him. A silver-haired youth appeared in Lu Chuyi's mind. He was gentle, resolute, mysterious, and unpredictable. He had also obtained her first time. The figure she saw out of the corner of her eye was similar to the one in Suyu's mind. However, when she fixed her eyes on him, she found that the person in front of her was an old and frail white-haired old man. His hair was white and fluttering in the wind. Although his body was old, he was standing upright in the wind. He had a sage-like charm. It wasn't him. The great disparity startled Lu Chuyi. In terms of temperament, the two of them were too similar. Suyu turned around and looked at Lu Chuyi. He had an impulse to approach her and greet her, but he restrained himself in the end. With a faint smile, he asked, "Miss, why are you looking at me?" Lu Chuyi came back to her senses and shook her head in disappointment. She raised her beautiful eyes and looked into Suyu's eyes. No, she suddenly couldn't continue speaking, because when she looked into Suyu's eyes, she found that even his eyes were so similar. They were as deep as the starry sky, which made it difficult for people to extricate themselves from them. They were also filled with an unforgettable brilliance. Was there really a person in this world whose temperament and eyes were so similar? Lu Chuyi's heart was in a mess. After a moment of silence, she asked softly, "Mister, may I ask if you know a person called Inu?" The name Suyu she knew was the Inu from the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Suyu's emotions fluctuated, and he was inexplicably delighted that she still remembered him. Suyu smiled and shook his head. "I don't know him. I'm Suyu Xian, and I don't know Inu. May I know who he is?" "Isn't he? How could he be?" Lu Chuyi laughed at herself and apologized. "He's an old friend. Sorry for disturbing you." After she spoke, she stepped on a breeze and flew up into the sky. Then, like a butterfly, she disappeared into the azure sky. Suyu sighed softly for a long time as he looked at her back. After calming himself down, Suyu stood up and entered the courtyard. There, he met the middle-aged scholar who had just seen Lu Chuyi off. "Old mister, may I ask why you have come to my house?" The middle-aged scholar was very polite, especially after he had witnessed Lu Chuyi and Suyu's simple conversation. "Your house." Suyu suddenly understood. The person in front of him was the Bright Moon House's Bright Moon householder. "I'm Suyu Xian, the Tonglin Elixir Store's shopkeeper. I've come here to pay a visit to Bright Moon householder." Suyu revealed a faint smile. However, the expression of Bright Moon householder, who had been polite a moment ago, stiffened slightly. Then, his smile disappeared, and he wore an ice-cold expression. He sized up Suyu, while a mocking smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. "I was wondering who it was. So it's the famous Suyu Xian." Suyu furrowed his brows when he heard his sarcastic words. "Did I offend this person? Speak. Why did you come here?" Bright Moon householder hid his hands in his sleeves and wore a faint smile as he spoke. Suyu furrowed his brows as he sized up Bright Moon householder. "It seems like you don't plan to sell me your elixirs." Bright Moon householder curled up the corners of his mouth. It's not that I don't want to sell them, but that I don't dare." "Great shopkeeper Su, you even dare to talk back to shopkeeper Fei. I'm afraid of you. So how could I dare to do business with you?" It was great shopkeeper Fei, Suyu thought. It was only now that he recalled that Suyu hadn't agreed to be exploited by him at the elixir meet, and he had even talked back to him in front of everyone. He really didn't expect that this man would be so narrow-minded and try to make things difficult for Suyu. Shopkeeper Fei's Heavenly Fragrance Elixir Store was one of Bright Moon householder's great clients, and Suyu's Tonglin Elixir Store was dispensable in comparison to it. If Shopkeeper Fei had strictly ordered him not to sell elixirs to Suyu, then Bright Moon householder would surely know what to do. However, Bright Moon householder's character wasn't worthy of praise, as he had intentionally mocked Suyu in order to please Shopkeeper Fei. Since Bright Moon householder had already spoken up to this point, Suyu wouldn't ask for a rebuff, so he turned around and was about to leave. "Wait!" Bright Moon householder's expression became ice-cold. "Before you leave, you should first pay your debts." Suyu was aware of this, as when he was flipping through the accounts a moment ago, he had discovered that there was a debt left behind. It was a debt of 100 crystals, and it had been delayed due to the fact that there wasn't a new shopkeeper. Suyu took out 100 crystals from his sleeves. Since he had taken over the shopkeeper's position, he would surely pay off his debts. However, Bright Moon householder just hid his hands in his sleeves and didn't intend to take them. He just sneered and asked, 100 crystals?" Suyu asked calmly, "What? Isn't it 100 crystals on credit?" Bright Moon householder sneered coldly. It was 100 crystals in the past, but now it's 10,000 crystals. Guards! Walala! A group of servants came out of the house in a line. They were all powerful level 6 fairies. Suyu's eyes flickered as he asked, "What do you mean?" Bright Moon Householder replied coldly, "I don't mean anything. A year ago, it was 100 crystals, and now it's 10,000. If you don't pay it off today, then don't dream about leaving the Bright Moon House until you pay off your debts." It was obvious that he was cooperating with shopkeeper Fei, as the elixir store couldn't open for business until Suyu returned. Moreover, if he didn't open for business for more than 5 days, he would be stripped of his shopkeeper's position. Suyu raised his eyes and put away the crystals in his hand, while his gaze became ice cold. Even if Bright Moon Householder didn't want to sell elixirs to him, he still wouldn't make things difficult for him. After all, Suyu wouldn't force people to do things against their will. However, it was a completely different matter if he was helping a tyrant to commit evil deeds. "Have you really made up your mind?" Suyu asked calmly. Bright Moon Householder sneered. "You're still pretending to be calm, even at such a time. I really admire you. Guards, tie him up." Chapter 856. Divine Seal, Haunted by Evil Spirits. At the last moment, he used some kind of secret technique to forcefully summon the Divine Seal ahead of time. A glittering golden seal flickered above his head. At the bottom of the seal was a sinister ghost face. Suyu's expression changed slightly, and he cursed inwardly. He then held the little demoness and retreated quickly. At the same time, he waved his wrist, and the silk in his sleeve quickly cut off the top of his head. The incomparably hard ceiling of the cave was forcefully cut open. The starlight from the outside naturally shone into the cave, and the fresh air that had not been there for a long time blew in. Suyu stamped on the ground with the tip of his foot, then soared into the sky along with the little demoness and left the underground world. But just as he left, an illusory ghost face rushed out of the cave. It was 100 feet in size. The ghost face opened its mouth and bit the two of them. This bite was not on the flesh, but on the soul. All of a sudden, Suyu felt a heart-wrenching pain in his soul, as if it was about to be chewed to pieces by some invisible force. As for the little demon in his arms, he let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body trembled as he clutched his head in pain. If nothing unexpected happened, their divine souls would be destroyed in the next moment. The Ghost Buddha's divine seal was actually a soul attack. This was something no one knew about. He hit it extremely well, using it as a trump card. Now that he was facing death, he finally let it out. At such a critical moment, Suyu pushed the little demoness away. As the ghost face roared, it split into two. One of them continued biting Suyu, while the other chased after the little demoness. Suyu's expression changed slightly, and he cursed inwardly. Soul flame. Suyu's eyes flickered with a faint white light, while a formless soul flame engulfed the ghost face, which was chasing after the little demoness. The ghost face's whole body was emitting green smoke, and he angrily roared as he turned around. He gave up on Suyu and pounced at him once again. At this moment, the little devil had recovered a little from her injuries, and her vision was no longer blurred. Witnessing all of this, the little demoness felt as if she had been electrocuted, and her heart was deeply shaken. She was at a loss, puzzled, doubtful, and a warm current that she had never felt before surged in the depths of her heart. "Why did you save me like this?" The little devil pondered, feeling confused for the first time. He clearly did not know her. He clearly could have left her behind. He clearly could have let her attract the ghost face mask and run away. The unexplainable questions were like a ball of tangled up tightly in his heart. At this moment, Suyu, who was facing the ghost face's tearing, didn't seem to be in pain anymore. This was because the divine nine-dragon cauldron had been disturbed. Wisps of pure red liquid blended into Suyu's blood vessels and soothed the pain and injuries caused by his soul. No matter how the ghost faces tried to bite him, they couldn't harm Suyu in the slightest. Finally, a miserable scream sounded from within the cave. The ghost Buddha screamed as it was turned into ashes by the lightning beast from the inside out. At that moment, the ghostly face faded away. However, it did not disappear. Instead, It turned into a mark the size of a palm and sank into Suyu's chest. Suyu felt a burning sensation in his chest. When he lowered his head to take a look, his expression changed. The ghostly face had turned into a mark that was imprinted on his chest. From afar, it looked as if a ghostly face had drilled out from Suyu's chest. Suyu immediately used his vital energy in an attempt to force the ghost face out. However, the ghost face didn't budge at all. It was as if it was embedded in Suyu's chest. He tried to use his soul energy, but it was useless. After that, Suyu tried many times, but he could not do anything to the ghostly face. How is this possible? Suyu's expression changed several times. The owner of the ghostly face was already dead. So why did the ghostly face enter his body? Was this a great hidden danger? Suyu became restless. At this moment, the little demoness spoke weakly. It's a curse. The ghost Buddha's divine seal is a curse, and the stronger the master's resentment is, the stronger the curse will be. It will then reside in the body of the target of the resentment and slowly devour the target's soul energy until the target's soul is exhausted and he dies. Suyu's expression became gloomy when he heard this. It seemed like his soul was really weakening, but the divine nine-dragon cauldron didn't react at all. His heart sank. Whenever his soul suffered any harm, the divine nine-dragon cauldron would protect him. But now his soul was still weakening. The divine nine-dragon cauldron couldn't detect any danger, so it wouldn't take any action. As he thought of this, Suyu furrowed his brows. He had unexpectedly provoked such a troublesome existence. Is there a way to resolve it? Suyu asked gravely. The little demoness shook her head. Her eyes were filled with regret. She should have shared half of the curse's burden. Was there no way to resolve it? Unless your soul energy reaches a higher level than the ghost Buddha's, the curse will disappear on its own, the little demoness added. However, this was impossible. While the ghost face was devouring souls unceasingly, try to raise one soul energy was just a pipe dream. Suyu's expression softened slightly. If this was the case, then the situation wouldn't be too bad. After all, he still had the heart-refining mortal dust liquid, and as long as he quickly produced a large amount of it, he should be able to offset his soul energy's loss. Moreover, if he didn't personally investigate whether there was a way to resolve the curse, how would he know for sure? Suyu went back to the basement to verify whether the ghost Buddha was really dead. It was only when he discovered that the ghost Buddha was just a pile of ashes, without even a soul left behind, that Suyu felt at ease. Otherwise, if he allowed such a dangerous enemy to roam freely in this world, he would sooner or later suffer a great disaster. When the lightning beast saw Suyu, it roared several times with hostility before it reluctantly went back into the 5-elemental strong thunder seal. Suyu furrowed his brows slightly. Even after refining it for such a long time, the lightning beast still hasn't been completely tamed. It seems like the 5-elemental strong thunder seal needs to be refined further and evolve into a semi-manufactured fairy artifact. After he left the cave, Suyu pondered how he should send the little demoness to the Red Blood Palace's headquarters. If the headquarters people discovered him and followed him, then he would be in great trouble. However, when he went back to the ground, he didn't see the little demoness anywhere. His heart tightened slightly, and he wondered, did the 3 murders gang's people capture her? However, he had just left for a moment, and he had been paying attention to any disturbances on the ground. So, how was it possible for someone to capture the little demoness without him noticing it? All of a sudden, Suyu noticed a scarlet pendant on the ground. It was the little demoness fire essence jade. Suyu grabbed it, and it was only now that he noticed that there was a sound transmitting jade pendant on it. Could it be an urgent message from the little demoness? Suyu immediately pressed it against his ear and listened to the message on it solemnly. You are AB****. You touched and hugged me, so I won't let you off. I will give you the fire essence jade, as I don't want to owe you for saving my life. Humph. Suyu smiled. It seemed like the little demoness hadn't been captured. When he assumed that the little demoness had finished speaking, the little demoness spoke once again. Humph. Moreover, I must inform you that I'm not a little girl. as I'm already 18 years old. Suyu was startled by this, and he couldn't help but wonder, what does she mean by this last sentence? He was aware that the little demoness had eaten a spiritual object by mistake when she was young, which caused her body to remain at the age of 10 years old. So, her age was really the same as Suyu's. Suyu couldn't understand this at all, so he shook his head and looked at the fire essence jade in his palm. This jade pendant was worth 1,000,000 crystals. This was the first time that he had ever received such a precious object, and the little demoness value had exceeded his expectations once again. Since she had given it to him, Suyu wouldn't refuse it, so he put it away and went back to the elixir store. In a luxurious palace in the inner city, the little demoness was lying on a bed, and she was surrounded by beautiful maids. Moreover, all of them were at the Divine Master Realm. They all wore respectful expressions and were treating her injuries carefully. They didn't dare to be careless in the slightest, as if the little demoness had a lofty status. An old man was sitting calmly on a stone table in front of the bed. He wore a calm expression, and it was impossible to discern his cultivation level. "Old Lon, why didn't you help me earlier? Or, why didn't you give me an even more powerful treasure? I would have surely been able to blast the ghost Buddha into smithereens. You caused me to suffer such injuries." The little demoness pouted her mouth, while her face was filled with resentment. Old Lon smiled amiably. "This was the Cliff Master's order, and he instructed us to only help you when your life is in danger. He didn't give you an excessively powerful treasure, which is why you can grow stronger. Otherwise, what will you do if you face powerful enemies alone in the future?" The little demoness bared her teeth and said fiercely, "I'm already very powerful, as I can fight against the Divine Master at the level 9 fairy realm." Old Lon chuckled and said, "The lad who saved you is just a level 3 fairy realm, yet he can easily kill the ghost Buddha." If she hadn't heard, she wouldn't have known. As soon as she stopped, she almost jumped out of bed. "What? That lad is just a level 3 fairy realm? How can he be so powerful?" "Hee hee, young Cliff Master, don't you trust my eyes? That lad has been lying in ambush since the beginning, and he used an extremely powerful technique to control the underground world situation. Your every move was under his control." Old Lan's eyes flickered as he spoke. The little demoness' eyes flickered, and she squinted. "Are you saying that Astris Stard has been spying on me since the beginning? Did he save me on purpose in order to gain my favor?" Her identity was quite special, so she couldn't rule out the possibility that opportunistic people like her would use such a technique. Old Lon muttered to himself irresolutely, then shook his head. "No, based on my observations, his original intention was to rescue the trapped hostages, and saving you was just a matter of convenience. Otherwise, such a scheming person would have already been killed by the young Cliff Master. Why would he still be alive?" A wisp of killing intent flickered in Old Lan's eyes. The suspicion in the little demoness' eyes disappeared, and she heaved a sigh of relief. She bit her lips and asked hesitantly, "Then, Old Lon, do you know his identity?" Old Lon looked at the little demoness in surprise. According to his memory, his little master rarely took the initiative to show concern for others. However, this suspicion only lasted for a moment, and he didn't take it to heart. "No, I was just concerned about whether he would harm you, so I didn't try to see through his attire to avoid being discovered by him." Old Lon shook his head. Disappointment flickered in the little demoness' eyes. She then shook her head and said, "Forget it. I won't think about it anymore. I have already compensated him, so I don't owe him any favors." The next day, a shocking piece of news spread out from Tinya Outer City. The Three Murders Gang's master had been killed by a mysterious expert. When this news spread, it gave rise to a great commotion. The Three Murders Gang, which was the Outer City's greatest underworld faction, had unexpectedly been killed by a mysterious expert. Chapter 857. She tried to split open the cave above her head to return to the surface. However, after splitting it open, he discovered that he had entered a new cave, and the higher he drilled, the harder the soil became. Even when he reached the top of the cave, the lower-grade spirit weapon in his hand was unable to break the soil. With a slash of the sword, the spiritual weapon actually left a shallow mark, and the cavern's ceiling did not move at all. There's a formation at the top of the cave. The little demoness quickly discovered the reason, and she couldn't help but get angry. How hateful! I didn't expect that the ghost Buddha would be so cautious. It's no wonder that no one could break into the Three Murders Gang's headquarters. If it was so easy to destroy the top layer of the cave, why would they need to go through so much trouble when the various forces besieged them? He just needed to break open the ground. The ghost Buddha had meticulously designed a large area of the Three Murders Gang, which was the center of the Three Murders Gang, was covered with a spell formation. Thus, external forces would not be able to dig through the underground cave. This was the only way to ensure the safety of the cave. It could be said that the little devil had become a mouse in a cage, trapped in the underground world, unable to escape. The little demoness was vexed. Humph! I don't believe that I can't get out of here. 2 hours later, at the end of a certain cave was a wall. The little devil was panting, and her eyes were filled with impatience. What's going on? After walking for so long, why is it a dead end again? She had already walked through 10 caves, but all of them were dead ends like the one in front of her. Hee. That's because only 2 out of 100 caves can leave. Little girl, you have nowhere else to go. A sneer suddenly sounded from behind her. The little fiend was startled. When she looked back, her pupils shrank. A half-ghost, half-Buddha figure stood coldly 1,000 feet away. How did you catch up? The little devil asked in surprise. The ghost Buddha sneered and said, This underground is my world. Isn't it easy for me to find you? The little demon gritted her teeth. Who's afraid of you? With that said, the little devil took out a shield and a small black sword. At the same time, she took out a small black sword from her bosom. The ghost Buddha sneered, Is that all you can do? Shwa. The ghost Buddha left a trail of afterimages as it bombarded the little demoness shield before she was ready. Bang! The little demon was smashed into the wall along with its shield. The violent impact caused the little demon's internal organs to tremble, and she couldn't help but vomit a mouthful of blood. She was no match for him at all. Rolling her eyes, she casually grabbed a handful of talismans. Roughly counting, there were more than 100 of them, and all of them were extremely powerful talismans. Any one of them would be worth more than tens of thousands of crystal stones in the market. Each one could threaten the life of a godlord. Even the ghost Buddha was startled when she took out so many treasures in one go. He was about to continue attacking, but he suddenly stopped and quickly retreated. He shouted anxiously, Who are you? Even the Tingao auction house's core members don't have so many talismans, do they? Humph! I will blow you up, you old bastard. The little demoness waved her hand, and a large number of talismans shot toward the ghost Buddha like snowflakes. Even the ghost Buddha did not dare to forcefully break through the talismans that were so densely packed together. As he retreated, he gathered the 2 divine lights of the ghost and Buddha to envelop his body. Boom, boom. All of a sudden, earth-shattering rumbles echoed, and they seemed like layers upon layers of tsunamis that surged toward him. Even the ghost Buddha, who possessed magical abilities, was forced to retreat by the explosions, and the divine light on the surface of his body fluctuated unceasingly. However, it couldn't be denied that the ghost Buddha was extraordinarily powerful, and no matter how densely packed the talismans were, the explosion's impact couldn't injure him in the slightest. When the last rumbling sound dissipated, the ghost Buddha's gaze became ice cold, and it was filled with shame and anger. However, when the smoke and dust from the explosion dissipated, there was no one at the end of the cave. The ghost Buddha's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly attacked. The 2 divine lights of the ghost and Buddha turned into 2 sharp arrows that shot toward the void, which was 30 feet away from him. A tender cry of pain echoed out, and the void swayed. A petite person who was wrapped in a shield was sent flying, and a talisman on her chest was torn apart by the divine lights. A concealment talisman? Humph! The ghost Buddha sneered coldly. He didn't give the little demoness any time to react, and he turned into an afterimage that rushed toward her and grabbed her neck. The little demoness suffered the attacks of the 2 divine lights, and blood gushed out of her chest. It was obvious that she had suffered severe internal injuries. The power of the two divine lights was indeed formidable. Little girl, rest in peace. The ghost Buddha snorted coldly, and vital energy surged in his 5 fingers. He was about to pierce her neck and strangle her to death. However, at this moment, the ghost Buddha suddenly felt a chill on his back, and he became alarmed. This feeling of extreme danger was something that the little demoness didn't feel even when she threw out more than 100 talismans. He felt his hair stand on end, and he immediately gave up on the little demoness and retreated. Rip! Just as he retreated, an ice-cold thread pierced through his ribs. If he hadn't reacted in time, his heart would have been pierced. However, the thread that pierced through his body swept across his ribs, and it forcefully cut through his ribs. Then, it swept toward his heart. Along the way, all of his internal organs were cut into pieces. His extremely strong body, which he was so proud of, was like a piece of tofu in front of this thread. The ghost Buddha's face turned pale with fright. When he saw that the thread was about to cut through his chest, and that his body couldn't resist it at all, a resolute look appeared in the ghost Buddha's eyes, and he made an extremely bloody move. He formed a claw with his right hand and tore open his own chest. He then extended his hand into his chest and grabbed the thread. However, this claw only managed to slow down the thread's cutting, as his hand was also cut off. However, he still managed to take advantage of this short moment of respite, and, as his body flickered, he pulled out the thread from his body. It was only when the thread reached the end of the cave that the ghost Buddha turned his head around, and a grave look appeared in his eyes. Who is it? A person wearing a straw cape, whose face couldn't be seen clearly, walked out of the cave's corner. It was obviously Suyu, who was wearing the straw cape. Moreover, it was a young Suyu. He didn't want to expose himself in front of the little demoness, so he was wearing the straw cape. Even if the straw cape was torn apart, the young Suyu would be revealed, and he wouldn't be related to Suyu at all. I'm obviously the person who came to kill you, Suyu said calmly, while he extended his arm and pulled the little demoness into his embrace. They were both members of the Demon Mountain, so Suyu wouldn't just leave them to die. Moreover, he had come here to get rid of the 3 Murders gang so that they wouldn't cause any more trouble in the future. The little demoness was heavily injured, and her senses were fuzzy. She could only hear a young and magnetic voice, as well as a broad and powerful chest. This was the first time that the little demoness was being held in a young man's embrace, and she couldn't help but struggle. She felt quite ashamed of her current predicament. If you don't want to die, then just stay here obediently, Suyu reprimanded her in a soft voice. He didn't dare to get distracted while facing the infamous ghost Buddha. The little demoness was frightened by his reprimand. This was the first time that someone had dared to shout at her, and she was both infuriated and annoyed by it. However, the little demoness surprisingly calmed down, and even though she was still snorting, she couldn't help but wonder who this person was and why he wanted to save her. This was the first time that she was interested in a mysterious young man. The ghost Buddha became quite grave, and he asked coldly, "Sir, are you a member of the Tingao Auction House or the Red Blood Palace?" Since this person had appeared in such a timely manner, he was surely one of the little girl's companions. Suyu replied calmly, "I'm neither of them. I just came here to get rid of you so that I can avoid trouble." When his voice just echoed, Suyu waved his sleeves, and a formless thread shot toward the ghost Buddha. Although the ghost Buddha couldn't see the thread, he could still feel great danger approaching him. The ghost Buddha leaped forward without giving this matter any thought. The moment he leaped forward, a faint crack appeared on the stone wall behind him. The cave ceiling was also split open by it. The ghost Buddha's expression became grave. There was a formation above the cave, and even a divine master like him wouldn't be able to break it and shatter the cave ceiling. What kind of dingshi is this? Why is it so terrifying? However, the ghost Buddha didn't have much time to ponder this matter, as he was already cornered. He could only rush out of the cave and look for the 3 Murders gang's reinforcements. Swoosh! The ghost and Buddha divine lights on his body turned into sharp arrows that shot toward Suyu. The ghost Buddha followed the divine lights closely and charged out of the cave while Suyu was dodging them. However, he was surprised to see that Suyu didn't try to dodge them. Instead, a jade light flickered on his arm, and a multicolored jade seal appeared in his palm. The jade seal emitted a wave of pressure that could make one's heart shudder. It seemed like a worldly, spiritual god, and it was awe-inspiring. The ghost Buddha was overwhelmed with shock. A prototype fairy artifact. He quickly stopped and retreated in fright. When he reached the end of the cave, he said in fright, "Your Excellency, we can discuss this matter. I'm willing to pay any compensation you want." The ghost Buddha begged for mercy at the moment of his death. Suyu replied calmly, "Do you still want to play the same trick? Do you want to stall for time so that you can use your divine seal? It's a pity that I'm not this little girl." At that time, the little demoness had been too careless and wasted a lot of time, which gave the ghost Buddha enough time to use his ghost Buddha's constitution. Suyu had experienced many battles along the way, so he naturally understood that one must cut the grass quickly. 5 Elemental Strong Thunder Seal. As Suyu imbued his vital energy into it, a loud roar echoed from it. Then, a ferocious beast, whose whole body was flickering with lightning, appeared while roaring. After it came out, it glared at Suyu fiercely. It was filled with killing intent, and it seemed like it would betray him at any moment. However, it still obeyed Suyu's order and turned its head to look at the ghost Buddha with a disdainful gaze. As it roared in a low voice, the lightning beast turned into a bolt of lightning and teleported in front of the ghost Buddha's chest. Its speed was too quick, and the ghost Buddha didn't even have time to react before its body was penetrated. At this moment, the ghost Buddha was weaving hand signs, which were used to summon the divine seal. If he had waited any longer, the divine seal would have appeared. His magical abilities were already so powerful, so his divine seal would probably be even more powerful. The ghost Buddha screamed miserably as he was engulfed by lightning from the inside out. Many cracks, which were filled with lightning, started to spread on his body. The ghost Buddha, who had killed countless divine masters, had now fallen into a mysterious person's hands. Resentment and anger welled up in the ghost Buddha's heart. Chapter 858. Regret? Sizzle. You're the one who should regret it. You offended great shopkeeper Fei, yet you still want to stay in Tianya City? Attack! Treat our great shopkeeper Su well. Bright Moon Householder hid his hands in his sleeves as he watched the show. The servants didn't hesitate any longer, and they all attacked Suyu. Suyu's gaze became ice cold. He had already said all that he could, and since they wanted to harm him, he didn't have any reason to be merciful. As Suyu revolved his vital energy, the air around him started revolving crazily at a shocking speed and was compressed around him. Under the intense pressure, the air was compressed into a pitch-black ribbon, emitting a powerful pressure. Buddhist Saints 8 characters. Suyu waved his hand, and the pitch-black ribbon started twisting and engulfing the surroundings. The servants who were attacking him were all fairies, and their cultivation was between level 5 and level 7 fairies. Although they were strong, they weren't as strong as the Buddhist Saints 8 characters. When the ribbon struck their bodies, it immediately shattered their vital energy defenses, and they were sent flying away like balls. They were all smashed into pieces, and their wails filled the air. Bright Moon Householder, who was watching the show, raised his brows. A middle-grade legendary cultivation techniques, first level peak. He was slightly surprised, as he had inquired about Suyu's status. It seemed like Suyu was an outer sanctum disciple of the Red Blood Palace. But how could an outer sanctum disciple, who didn't have a powerful backer, get a middle-grade legendary cultivation technique? He was caught off guard, and all of his servants were beaten down. His expression became slightly unsightly. Regardless of everything, he was still a respected person in Tianya City, and even Lu Chui, who was known as the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Land's greatest beauty, had come here to ask him for help. Thus, he couldn't allow anyone to tarnish his reputation. He definitely couldn't tolerate the fact that his servants were injured by an outsider in front of his own house. Humph! How dare you behave atrociously in front of my house? Bright Moon Householder snorted coldly as a shocking spiritual pressure surged out of him. The injured servants in the vicinity were in great pain due to this aura. Suyu's body flickered as he flew backward. His pupils became grave as he thought to himself, an almighty divine master? He didn't expect that Bright Moon Householder was a hidden almighty divine master. As he thought about it, he realized that it was reasonable, as he was one of the Elixir Alliance's 3 great partners. After all, he wasn't an ordinary martial artist. Otherwise, he would have been killed long ago in Tianya City. Was he going to attack a divine master in front of everyone? As Suyu surveyed his surroundings, he slightly furrowed his brows. This place belonged to the bustling inner city, and there were many people coming and going. As such, the commotion caused by the fight just now had attracted many people's attention. If he fought against Bright Moon Householder in front of so many people, it would be difficult for him to avoid exposing his true power, and this was something that Suyu didn't want to happen. Humph! Bright Moon Householder's whole body emitted a powerful aura. His gaze became sharp, and he was about to attack. However, right at that moment, 2 figures emerged from the darkness like ghosts. One was in front of the other, and the other was behind him, protecting Suyu. Both of them exuded the aura of a divine master, which startled the onlookers. Who is that old man? Why does it seem like he has 2 divine master experts protecting him? For a moment, the crowd discussed spiritedly and were surprised. Bright Moon Householder was also startled, and as he swept his gaze over the 2 people's clothes, he was slightly surprised. The Red Blood Palace's auction house. Both of them had the words Red Blood Palace Auction House on their chests. They were a man and a woman, both middle-aged. The woman was cold, while the man was calm. Since you are aware of it, then just leave. The man stood in front of Suyu and berated him. The woman's expression was ice cold. If you want to fight him, then I don't mind exchanging blows with you. Bright Moon Householder's heart sank, and he was quite surprised. Great shopkeeper Fei had informed him that Suyu was just a lowly shopkeeper. So how could he be protected by 2 divine masters from the Red Blood Palace's auction house? Bright Moon Householder was confident that he could deal with one of them, but he couldn't fight both of them at the same time. Do you really want to oppose my Bright Moon House? Bright Moon Householder asked in a deep voice. He was backed by the Elixir Alliance, and he was acquainted with many of its alchemists. Hence, he wasn't afraid of the Red Blood Palace's auction house. The man's gaze became ice cold. If you really want to give it a try, then let me experience Bright Moon Householder's might first. His unspoken implication was that Bright Moon Householder only dared to attack a junior like Suyu. Bright Moon Householder was infuriated, but since it had already come to this, he had no choice but to drop the matter. He then turned his gaze towards Suyu and said coldly, "Consider yourself lucky. But you won't be so lucky next time." He didn't believe that the 2 almighty divine masters would protect Suyu all the time, and there must be some reason that he didn't know about. Hence, he must look for great shopkeeper Fei and discuss this matter again. "I'm looking forward to the next time we run into each other," Suyu said calmly. In fact, the one who was really lucky was Bright Moon Householder. Otherwise, the evil god would have had another great meal for him today. Bright Moon Householder didn't know that the arrival of the 2 divine masters had saved him from a terrifying fate, and he assumed that Suyu was relying on the 2 almighty divine masters to threaten him. So, he couldn't help but say mockingly, "You were just boasting behind people's backs. Hee, it seems like you're only capable of this much. Lad, don't get happy so soon, as I can assure you that none of the Elixir Alliance's partners will dare to sell you elixirs. You can either go around buying elixirs at a high price, or you can just get lost from Tianya City." Great shopkeeper Fei was a man of his word, and he had even threatened Suyu on the spot, saying that if Suyu left, he wouldn't be able to stay in Tianya City any longer. Suyu wasn't too worried about this, as even if no one sold him elixirs, he could still make them himself. After all, Suyu was a middle-stage alchemist, and he could easily make 3rd-grade spear elixirs. Even though it would be troublesome for him to make elixirs himself, if he couldn't find a supply, he could only make them himself. In the worst-case scenario, he could just ask the small Kylan to help him. With their alchemy skills, They should be able to make a large number of ordinary elixirs that were below spirit elixirs. However, it would be a waste of time for them to do so. This was why it was better for Su Yu to have a supply, as it would only cause him more trouble if he didn't have a supply, and it wouldn't cause him to lose his footing in Tianya City. As you wish. Su Yu didn't care about this matter, and he turned his head around to reveal a faint smile at the two almighty divine masters. Seniors, many thanks for your help. Su Yu was aware of their objective, and he knew that they were most likely sent by the Red Blood Palace to protect him. After all, Su Yu was the only person who could contact the expert who could make the heart-refining mortal dust liquid, and if Su Yu died, then everything would be over. Although it was good to be protected by them, it would also bring him many troubles. With them here, Su Yu wouldn't be able to openly go to the Purple Flame Mountain to make elixirs. It seemed like he would have to find a way to change the way he made elixirs. I really want to see how long you can be arrogant if no one sells elixirs to you. Don't come and beg me then. Bright Moon Householder snorted coldly, then turned around and went back to his house. Su Yu and the others also prepared to leave. However, it was at this moment that an old man wearing a white robe flew over from the horizon. His skin was completely red, and he gave off a strange vibe. When he neared him, Su Yu discovered, to his surprise, that his whole body was emitting a high temperature. It was as if there was a furnace hidden within the old man's body. Bright Moon Householder, who was about to enter his house, couldn't help but turn his head around. When he saw the old man, his expression changed drastically, and his gloomy expression was replaced by surprise and respect. He quickly took out his hands from his sleeves and walked toward the house's gate. He then cupped his hands and bowed. Greetings, Alliance Deputy Master Lu. The red-haired old man in front of him was the Elixir Alliance's deputy master. He was one of the strongest late-stage alchemists, and he could make 6th-grade spirit elixirs. An alchemist grade was a clear indication of his alchemy attainments. In Tianya City, there were only 2 Alliance Masters and 2 Deputy Alliance Masters who could make 6th-grade spirit elixirs. Their alchemy attainments were among the highest in Tianya City. Alliance Deputy Master Lu flew down and stood in front of the house's gate. As he surveyed the surroundings, he furrowed his brows slightly and asked, "Why are there so many people here? Did something happen?" Bright Moon Householder wore an amiable look as he replied, "It was an ignorant shopkeeper who caused trouble in front of my house, but he has already been dealt with. Alliance Deputy Master Lu, your presence brings light to our humble Bright Moon House. Please come inside and have a seat." Bright Moon Householder invited him warmly. As the Alliance Deputy Master, this old man had a high status in the Elixir Alliance. Bright Moon Householder had relied on him to become one of the Elixir Alliance's 3 great partners. Alliance Deputy Master Lu was his backer and his life, so how could he neglect him? Alliance Deputy Master Lu shook his head and said, "There is no need. I still have a furnace of important elixirs to concoct, so I don't have time to leave." Alliance Deputy Master Lu was surprised and confused. Then, "May I ask if Alliance Deputy Master Lu has any instructions for me?" Alliance Deputy Master Lu nodded and said, "Yes, I indeed have some instructions for you. This is Alliance Master Zhou's instruction, so you must carry it out earnestly and not neglect it. Otherwise, if you infuriate Alliance Master Zhou, you will be replaced by another merchant, and even I won't be able to save you." Upon hearing that the consequences would be so grave, Bright Moon Householder became respectful and said, "Alliance Deputy Master Lu, please instruct me. I will go through hell and high water without hesitation." Alliance Deputy Master Lu nodded and said, "You don't have to be nervous. You just have to carry it out." Alliance Master Zhou's granddaughters were found a few days ago. Upon hearing this, Bright Moon Householder revealed a relieved expression and said, "Congratulations. Alliance Master Zhou's granddaughters went missing, and we were worried about them for a while. Now, they have finally been found. 3 days ago, Alliance Master Zhou's 3 granddaughters had sneaked out of the Elixir Alliance and gone missing. Not many people knew about this matter because the Elixir Alliance had kept a low profile. They didn't spread the news of Alliance Master Zhou's granddaughter's disappearance. and they had only asked elixir dealers like them to secretly inquire about whether the Three Murders gang in the outer city had done this. The day before, the news had come out, and it had indeed been done by the Three Murders gang. They had already sent a blackmail letter to the Elixir Alliance, asking for 30 profound pills that could advance one's cultivation. Otherwise, they would kill the hostages and harm Alliance Master Zhou's granddaughters. Both sides had been haggling over the price, and unexpectedly, they had been rescued the day before. Bright Moon Householder couldn't help but click his tongue in amazement. The Elixir Alliance was really powerful. Since they could rescue people from a place like the Three Murders gang, they must have asked many experts to help them. Yes, they were rescued by someone. Alliance Master Zhou has been occupied with important matters recently, so he can't go and thank you in person. So he asked you to do it on his behalf. Bright Moon Householder was bewildered. Deputy Alliance Master Lu, may I ask why he asked me to thank him? It's because the cultivator who rescued Alliance Master Zhou's granddaughters is running an elixir store in the outer city. The elixir store is located in the area where you are in charge of supplying elixirs. So, he wants you to take care of that elixir store first, and when Alliance Master is free, he will go and thank him in person. Upon hearing this, Bright Moon Householder was overjoyed. This was obviously a great opportunity for him to curry favor with Alliance Master Zhou. As long as he could satisfy that elixir store, he would be able to put in a good word for him in front of Alliance Master Zhou in the future. This wasn't a task at all. It was obviously a great opportunity, not to mention taking care of them. Even if he could send elixirs to that elixir store for free, it would still be a good deal. Deputy Alliance Master Lu, thank you for taking care of me. I will never forget it. Bright Moon Householder was very grateful. This was Deputy Alliance Master Lu's help. Otherwise, he could have given this task to the elixir dealers in the vicinity. Deputy Alliance Master Lu revealed a profound smile. It's good that you understand my intention. I came here to inform you in person because I hope that I can take care of this matter before the other Deputy Alliance Master. You are a smart person, and I believe that you won't disappoint me. Chapter 859. Alliance Deputy Master Lu recalled and said, according to Alliance Master Zhou's 3 granddaughters, they asked the saleswoman of that elixir store. She seems to be the shopkeeper of the Tonglin elixir store. I don't know his full name. I only know that his surname is Su. After you go there, you can ask about it in detail. Remember to be polite. In the future, Alliance Master Zhou will personally thank you. If you leave a bad impression and Alliance Master Zhou asks about it, it won't be good. The Elixir Alliance doesn't lack elixir dealers. There are many people who can replace you. Alliance Deputy Master Lu warned him again. Suddenly, Alliance Deputy Master Lu noticed that Bright Moon Householder's expression was strange. It seemed like he was crying, but it also seemed like he was smiling. His face was alternating between blue and white, which was quite strange. What? You don't want to? You don't want to pay for a few elixirs? Alliance Deputy Master Lu's face darkened. He was a little displeased and confused. Bright Moon Householder was a smart and capable man. Why couldn't he give up on such a small profit? Bright Moon Householder showed a smile that was even uglier than his crying face. Alliance Deputy Master Lu, why didn't you come earlier? There were more than 10 shopkeepers with the surname Su in the elixir stores in the outer city. However, there was only one shopkeeper Su in the Tonglin elixir store, Su Yuxian. He was still in the crowd and hadn't left yet. Humph. You don't want to? Alliance Deputy Master Lu squinted his eyes. Bright Moon Householder wanted to die at this moment. Why did it have to be Su Yuxian? How could it be so coincidental? Bright Moon Householder didn't know what to say. Alliance Deputy Master Lu's face darkened. He had thought that this was a small matter that could be done by giving orders. He didn't expect that Bright Moon Householder wouldn't give him face in front of so many people. If you don't want to do it, forget it. I have plenty of people to find. Alliance Deputy Master Lu was thoroughly angry. It was difficult to find alchemists, but it was easier to find elixir dealers. The reason why Bright Moon Householder could become one of the 3 great elixir dealers was that he had relied on his connections to get elixirs from the Elixir Alliance. Of course, Alliance Deputy Master Lu could also get a commission. If he wanted to replace him, it would be easy for him. However, He didn't want to be too troublesome and didn't want to change people frequently. Since Bright Moon Householder didn't know how to appreciate his kindness and offended him, he decided to meet the fourth-ranked elixir seller and ask him to take over Bright Moon Householder's position. He wouldn't suffer any loss. With that, Vice Alliance Master Lu flicked his sleeves and left. Bright Moon Householder looked as if he had lost his parents, and he said hurriedly, "Wait, it's not that I don't want to, but I can't." He had said the same thing to Suyu before, but at that time, he had said it in a sarcastic tone. Now, he was wearing a long face. Vice Alliance Master Lu frowned. "Speak clearly." He also felt that Bright Moon Householder was behaving strangely today, and he felt that something was not quite right. Since things had already come to this, Bright Moon Householder had no choice but to tell him everything. When he found out that he had just chased Suyu away, he couldn't help but be stunned. What kind of coincidence is this? Bright Moon Householder gave a brief account of what had happened. However, he still covered up his ugly face, and when Vice Alliance Master Lu heard it, it seemed like Suyu was just making trouble for no reason. However, Vice Alliance Master Lu was a shrewd old man, and he had experienced many worldly affairs. So, how could he not discern the flaws in Bright Moon Householder's words? He said coldly, "A low-grade elixir store's shopkeeper came to bully a supplier's servant for no reason." "Humph. Bright Moon, do you think that I'm muddle-headed? It seems to me like you just wanted to curry favor with Faye, so you took the initiative to make things difficult for him." Vice Alliance Master Lu's words hit the nail on the head, and he had already guessed most of what had happened. Bright Moon Householder's face turned pale, and he didn't reply. He was now filled with remorse. If he had just followed Great Shopkeeper Faye's instructions and didn't supply any elixirs, he could have just found a random reason to refuse Suyu's request. But he had done something superfluous and offended Suyu many times. In the end, he even wanted to teach Suyu a lesson, which provoked his two Divine Master Guards to attack him. So, how could he salvage the situation? "I don't care about your grudges with him, but if you implicate me, then you don't need to come to the Elixir Alliance to look for me in the future," Vice Alliance Master Lu said coldly. His unspoken implication was that he wanted Bright Moon Householder to deal with this matter by himself. If he could resolve the conflict between the two sides, Vice Alliance Master Lu wouldn't meddle in this matter any longer. But if he couldn't resolve this matter, then he would have to replace Bright Moon Householder in advance to prevent Suyu from speaking ill of Bright Moon Householder in front of Alliance Master Zhou. Upon hearing this, Bright Moon Householder's whole body shivered, and he didn't dare to blame anyone else. "Yes, I will immediately go and apologize to you," Bright Moon Householder said hurriedly. However, an apathetic voice transmitted from the crowd. "Lord Bright Moon, you don't need to trouble me, as I don't want to beg you to give me elixirs. So, you should just keep them for yourself." A moment ago, Bright Moon Householder had mocked Suyu, telling him not to beg him to sell him elixirs when he couldn't hold on any longer. When Vice Alliance Master Lu arrived, Suyu still hadn't walked far, and he heard their conversation clearly. He was quite surprised by this, as he couldn't believe that the Elixir Alliance's Alliance Master Zhou's 3 granddaughters were among the several young girls who were saved by Yingluan. This matter was quite unexpected. As for Bright Moon Householder, Suyu didn't want to pay any attention to such a person. If Bright Moon Householder refused to supply Suyu because of Great Shopkeeper Faye's threat, Suyu would understand him, and he wouldn't make things difficult for him. However, what was laughable was that Bright Moon Householder still wanted to act like a loyal hound and teach Suyu a lesson on Great Shopkeeper Faye's behalf. After all, Suyu didn't want to pay attention to such a disgusting person who flattered him. Even if Bright Moon Householder gave him elixirs for free, Suyu would still feel uncomfortable about it, and he surely didn't want to have any relations with such a person. Bright Moon Householder's face turned pale, and a pleading look appeared in his eyes. He cupped his fists at Suyu and said, "Shopkeeper Su, please spare me. I had eyes, but I didn't recognize you, so please don't take this matter to heart." His unspoken implication was that he was begging Suyu to accept the elixirs. Bright Moon Householder's words had come true, but he was the one who was begging Suyu to accept the elixirs, and it wasn't Suyu who was begging him for them. "Lord Bright Moon, I don't dare to curry favor with you. Farewell. Su Yu turned around and left while being escorted by two almighty divine masters. Alliance Deputy Master Lu, who witnessed all of this, was astonished. The shopkeeper, who had saved Alliance Master Zhou's 3 granddaughters, was among the crowd. Upon witnessing their conflict, Alliance Deputy Master Lu's expression became ice-cold. Bright Moon Householder, you don't need to come to the Elixir Alliance to look for me in the future. You should look for someone else. He raised his voice on purpose so that everyone could hear him, including Su Yu. He wanted to sever all relations with Bright Moon Householder. After he spoke, Alliance Deputy Master Lu flicked his sleeves and left, leaving Bright Moon Householder, who had lost all of his face. On this day, everyone knew that the famous elixir dealer, Bright Moon Householder, had been stripped of his qualifications. Even though he was acquainted with other alchemists in the Elixir Alliance, which alchemist would dare to go against a deputy master and continue befriending him? His elixir dealer career had come to an end here. If he could choose to start all over again, he wouldn't have done such a thing. But it was a pity that he didn't have a second chance. After Su Yu went back to the Tonglin elixir store, he said to the two almighty divine masters behind him, "Seniors, many thanks." They both revealed faint smiles and went into hiding. Once Su Yu was in danger, they would show themselves once again. As Su Yu entered the elixir store, he furrowed his brows slightly. How can I refine the heart refining mortal dust liquid while being monitored by two almighty divine masters? Once people found out that he could recover the lost ancient elixir liquid, he would surely be plagued by troubles. After Su Yu went back to his room, he immediately went into secluded meditation to comprehend the 5 elements mysteries art. After a whole night of secluded meditation, Su Yu managed to master 3 more Demon Clan's characters. Now that Su Yu had managed to master 7 characters, his comprehension of the universe's 5 elements had become more profound. He could gather the 5 elements with just a single thought. This was especially the case for his comprehension of fire. It was unknown whether it was because Su Yu had a wisp of tribulation fire in his body, but his comprehension of it had become more profound. If Su Yu started making elixirs now, he would be able to control the flames more smoothly. Su Yu's cultivation of the 5 elements mysteries art was quite smooth, but he could clearly feel that his soul power had become weaker during the cultivation process. Su Yu's expression couldn't help but become gloomy. The curse of being haunted by evil spirits was, after all, a hidden danger. If he didn't get rid of it in time, it would have a grave impact on his soul. Su Yu stood up. It was already dawn, but Ying Luan and Qing Lu, who were outside the room, had nothing to do. They were just looking at the empty elixir store. "Shopkeeper Su, why don't I find a way to look for some elixirs in the black market to make up the numbers? Otherwise, if someone reports you, you will be fired," Ying Luan said after giving it some thought. It was rare for her to come across such a good shopkeeper, so she didn't want to lose him. Su Yu revealed a faint smile. "There's no need for that. I already found the source of the elixirs yesterday." Upon hearing this, Qing Lu and Ying Luan heaved a sigh of relief and exchanged a glance. Delight appeared on their faces. "It's good that I need to go out for a while, so you should just wait in the elixir store. Someone should come to deliver the elixirs today," Su Yu said. He wanted to look for some ancient books in Tianya City to learn more about curses. He also wanted to investigate the fire essence jade's true use. Of course, there was still the extremely important Saint Blood Soul nourishing stone. Since it was coveted by the evil god, it was surely a miraculous treasure. Qing Lu asked hesitantly, "But the shopkeeper isn't here, so how can we pay for it?" "You don't need to pay for it. Even if you give it to them, they won't accept it." Su Yu waved his hand at them and swaggered away, leaving the 2 dumbstruck people behind. The Bright Moon Householder's affair had been fermented for a whole night, so everyone should have heard about it by now. Everyone knew the reason why he had ended up in such a predicament. At this moment, any smart elixir seller knew that they should curry favor with Su Yu. As long as Su Yu could put in a good word for him in front of the future Alliance Master Zhou, they would get more benefits than just a few free elixirs. The smart elixir sellers surely wouldn't miss out on such a good deal. After Su Yu left the elixir store, he went to Tianya City's largest ancient bookstore. The books in the store didn't contain ancient cultivation techniques. Instead, they contained books that introduced the ancient era's culture and helped people understand the ancient era civilization. Most of these books were copied, but only a small part of them were authentic works from the ancient era. Therefore, there would always be many people who would choose to come here to read the authentic ancient books from the ancient times, hoping to discover hidden ancient cultivation techniques and the like. Unfortunately, all of them returned empty-handed. Since these authentic ancient books could be openly displayed in the shop, it meant that the owner of the bookstore had already read them thousands of times. If there were really secrets, would it be the turn of an outsider? Suyu went to the largest ancient bookstore in Tianya City, where he was looking for all kinds of ancient books. What he wanted to know about the curse, the fire essence jade, and the sacred blood soul nourishing stone could be found here. However, before he entered the bookstore, he saw a petite figure crawling in and out of the bookstore. She seemed to be looking for something. Little demoness? Suyu clicked his tongue. Why did I run into this two-faced lowly again? She actually calmed down to look for ancient books instead of plotting to trick people. Chapter 860. Suyu observed the little demoness calmly as she flipped through some ancient books. Sometimes she furrowed her brows, and sometimes she scratched her head. In the end, she held an ancient book with a golden cover and beamed with joy, as if she had just found a treasure in it. After flipping through the book for a long time, the little demoness put it down contentedly. When she raised her head and saw Suyu, she was startled. She didn't expect to run into him here. Oh, it's Brother Yuxian. The little demoness ran over to him with a smile and said, It turns out that Brother Yuxian also came to Tianya City. It's no wonder that I didn't see you in the sanctum. Suyu revealed a faint smile. I also didn't expect that Wuxia would come to Tianya City. It's really fate. That's right. It's really fate. I wonder which shopkeeper you got after you used your special privilege of leaping over the Dragon's Gate. It seems like it can only be a low-grade shopkeeper, right? Gongsun Wuxia asked with a faint smile. This quota had originally belonged to Gongsun Wuxia. She had planned to make good use of it and earn a large amount of merit points so that she could enter the glittering jewel wonderland. However, Suyu had snatched it away from her halfway and forced her to carry out a dangerous and troublesome mission. Last time, she had almost died at the hands of the Ghost Buddha, but fortunately, she had been saved by a mysterious young expert. Suyu didn't try to hide it from her. Yes, it's a low-grade shop that owes debts. Where's Wuxia? Didn't you want her merit points? Did you come to Tianya City to carry out a mission? Gongsun Wuxia nodded and took pleasure in his misfortune. After you left, the Ghost List released a new mission, which is to kill the Ghost Buddha. It was carried out by an Inner Sanctum senior brother who didn't make any progress in the past 3 years, so he was forced to give up. This mission is worth 300,000 merit points. In other words, Suyu had snatched away her special privilege, but he had missed out on another mission with great merit points. Suyu found this quite funny. The little demoness had almost died at the hands of the Ghost Buddha, yet she still had the nerve to mention it. He was startled, and a look of remorse appeared on his face. Is this true? Did you manage to complete the mission? She had been waiting for such an expression from Suyu, and she felt much better now. She swung the 2 whips behind her head and couldn't help but laugh heartily at the sky. Wahaha, who do you think I am? You're just a Ghost Buddha, and I can crush you to death with a single finger. Didn't you hear that the 3 Murders Gang's leader is dead? Suyu's expression became quite unnatural, and he asked in surprise, I heard that the 3 Murders Gang's master is related to the Ghost Buddha. Could it be that you killed the wrong person? His reply caused the little demon to look at him with disdain. He laughed loudly and said, Are you stupid? You still don't understand? The 3 Murders Gang is the famous Ghost Buddha. Suyu was shocked. What? You killed the Ghost Buddha? The little devil clasped his hands behind his back and said proudly, Humph, do you admire me? So you're saying that you obtained 300,000 merit points? Suyun's face was filled with jealousy. The more he behaved like this, the happier the little demon was. She thought to herself, Who asked you to steal my privilege? Humph, now you're jealous of me? Isn't that obvious? The 300,000 merit points are all mine. The little devil raised her head and looked at him with a "what do you think" expression. Suyu's expression changed several times. In the end, he sighed dejectedly and asked gloomily, "How did you manage to kill the ghost Buddha?" The little devil's expression stiffened slightly, but he still boasted, "Humph, are you doubting my abilities? You don't know this, but when the ghost Buddha heard of my great name, Gongsun Wuxia, he was so scared that he wet his pants." She continued speaking. There was an arrogant lad who wanted to rob the ghost Buddha, but he ended up being beaten miserably by the ghost Buddha. The little demoness gestured with her hands and made an exaggerated expression, trying to describe the sorry state of the lad who had been beaten up. Then she patted her chest and said, "In the end, this grand ant stepped in. In just a few moves, the ghost Buddha was blasted into nothingness. That lad was deeply grateful to me and gave me a great treasure." Black lines appeared on Suyu's forehead when he heard the little devil shamelessly distorting the truth. He found it quite funny. It was obvious that she had been beaten miserably, and Suyu had saved her. Yet, in the end, the little devil claimed that it was Suyu who had been beaten miserably, and she who had saved him. "So that's how it is. You're really amazing," Suyu said. Gongsun Wuxia crossed her arms in front of her chest, her tail almost reaching the sky. She then said, "Of course, I have great abilities." Gongsun Wuxia was in a good mood after showing off, so she didn't care about Suyu occupying her special privileges anymore. She patted his shoulder and said, "Fine, I'm going back to the faction. You can continue to be the shopkeeper." Suyu couldn't help but laugh as he watched Gongsun Wuxia leave. If she knew that the person she was boasting about was the mysterious old man who had saved her, how would she feel? Suyu shook his head and strode into the bookstore. The bookstore was quite deserted, and only a few people were quietly looking for ancient books. "Sir, what kind of books would you like to borrow?" A young attendant walked over with a warm smile on his face. Suyu swept the surroundings with his gaze, then asked calmly, "What's the price?" The young attendant replied with a smile, "According to the time, it's 10,000 crystals per hour." 10,000. Suyu was startled. He didn't lack 10,000 crystals, but wasn't such a price a little too outrageous? At that moment, he saw a customer pay the bill and leave. He clearly saw that the customer had only paid 10 crystals. If it was 10,000 crystals per hour, then it would cost at least 150 crystals per minute. That customer had been here when Suyu arrived, and he had stayed for more than a few minutes. So, how could he have paid only 10 crystals? Suyu couldn't help but stare at the young man. He could vaguely see a hint of mockery in his eyes, and he also clearly noticed that the young man's gaze kept drifting over to the Red Blood Palace's mark on his chest. Is he deliberately making things difficult for me because of my identity? Suyu's heart skipped a beat. Tianya City was located at the border between the Red Blood Palace and the Central Prefecture, and there were many influences from the Central Prefecture in the city that were hostile to the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. For example, the same rare elixir could be sold to the martial artists of the Central Prefecture for 10 crystals, but sold to the disciples of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands, including the martial artists of the Red Blood Palace and the Purple Cloud Palace, could be sold for 20 crystals. He had seen this in the account book left behind by the previous shopkeeper of the Tonglin elixir store. He had deliberately slaughtered a martial artist of the Central Prefecture to achieve his goal of rejecting him. His guess was correct, as the bookstore in front of him was run by a Central Prefecture influence. Gongsun Wuxia had just entered in casual clothes, so the attendant didn't recognize the Red Blood Palace's mark. Hence, he didn't encounter any trouble. Suyu, on the other hand, was wearing the Red Blood Palace's uniform, so he was immediately reprimanded. If it were an ordinary Red Blood Palace disciple, he would have left in a huff for the sake of his dignity. But it was Suyu. A cold glint flickered in the depths of Suyu's eyes as he nodded slightly. "Fine, 10,000 per hour. I don't care about the crystals." Upon hearing that Suyu had agreed instead of leaving in anger, the attendant's smile stiffened, and he wondered inwardly, "Did I run into a fool?" 10,000 crystals per hour was equivalent to 150 crystals per minute. Who would be willing to pay such a high price? "What's wrong?" Don't you want to borrow my book? Suyu swept his gaze over the attendant. The attendant came back to his senses. He couldn't understand how someone could be so stupid as to agree. However, since there was a sheep waiting to be slaughtered, wouldn't it be intolerable if he didn't slaughter it? Haha. Old mister, please come in. May I ask which book do you want to read from the moment you flip through the pages? The attendant despised Suyu inwardly, but he still wore a smile on his face. Suyu glanced around and calmly said, "Bring me all the books about curses, spiritual stones, and jade in the store." The attendant despised Suyu even more, and he thought to himself, is this person really an idiot? The bookstore is so big, and there are at least 100 books in all 3 categories. How can he possibly read them all at once? Old mister, are you sure? The attendant asked with a smile. Suyu cast a sidelong glance at him. Did I not make myself clear, or are you deaf? Bring me all the ancient books in all 3 categories. Also, bring me the authentic golden ancient book as well. Suyu pointed at the golden ancient book that Gongsun Wuxia had just flipped through. The attendant was inwardly angry, but he couldn't lose his temper. He could only smile apologetically. Yes, I'll speak first. May I ask what kind of ancient book do you want to read? Is it a rubbing or an authentic one? Bring me all the relevant rubbing and authentic ones. Suyu said calmly. The attendant looked at him with disdain, and he couldn't help but remind him, Old mister, let me tell you in advance that this shop has a rule. Books can only be read in this shop, and you can't take them out. In addition, every time you borrow a book, you must finish reading it before you leave, in case some martial artist caused trouble and hoard the books without reading them. So, you must finish all the books you borrowed before you leave. How could he possibly finish reading so many books without a few days and nights? If he really calculated it according to 10,000 crystals per hour, even an almighty divine master might not be able to handle it for a few days and nights. He wanted to see how long this martial artist of the Red Blood Palace could last. You talk too much. I told you to take it, so just take it. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Suyu reprimanded him with a cold face. The waiter was infuriated, but he had opened the door to do business, and as a waiter, he had no right to openly argue with the customers. So, he could only suppress his anger and, together with the other waiters, scrambled to find all 3 types of books, as well as the golden-covered ancient, authentic work that Gongsun Wuxia had seen before. Old mister, they're all here. Please help yourself. The attendant put down the book and retreated to a distance with the other attendants, staring at Suyu coldly. The attendants secretly communicated with each other through vital energy. Zhao Chuan, isn't this too much? 10,000 crystals per hour. He's not a fool. So how could he really pay all the money? I think he's going to take the opportunity to cause trouble, one of the attendants said worriedly. Zhao Chuan was the first attendant, and he curled the corners of his mouth. Cause trouble? Do we, the Shenzhen bookstore, have to be afraid of someone causing trouble? We're not afraid of him causing trouble, but rather, we're afraid that he won't cause any big trouble. Hearing that, the attendants nodded secretly. The Shenzhen bookstore was backed by a 5th-grade almighty, so not many people dare to cause trouble in the bookstore. One of the attendants asked hesitantly, what if he really finishes reading all these books? Zhao Chuan smiled disdainfully. Isn't that better? It will take several days and nights to finish hundreds of books. Moreover, among these ancient books, there are many unfamiliar languages of various races. He won't be able to finish reading them without 10 days. All we have to do is wait for him to take out the crystals. Humph! Suyu had asked for so many books, so he was naturally confident. Taking a light breath, Suyu secretly operated the power of time, allowing himself to enter a state of 400-fold time acceleration. By the time the attendants outside blinked, Suyu had already finished reading the books for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Moreover, Suyu had a foundation of knowledge of the various races' languages. In their eyes, the foreign languages that were difficult to understand in the ancient books were almost the same as the human language. Therefore, Suyu flipped through the books extremely quickly, and he could basically finish a book in 2 hours. In the eyes of the attendants outside, Suyu was like a phantom finishing a book in just 10 breaths' time. They could even see that because Suyu was flipping through the books so quickly, the friction between the books and the air produced flames. The scene left everyone dumbfounded. Even Zhao Chuan was stunned, unable to believe what he was seeing. Suyu had spent more than 300 hours to read more than 300 books, which was a full 13 days. However, this was the effect of time and space acceleration of 400 times. In the outside world, only a little more than an hour had passed, not even 2 hours. Suyu's eyes were bloodshot, and he looked a little haggard. However, after all the hard work, Suyu had finally obtained some of the answers he wanted from the hundreds of precious ancient books. It turns out that the fire essence jade can also be used to cultivate inner fire. Suyu was secretly surprised. The fire essence jade was formed in extremely powerful flames after hundreds of years. Each drop was worth millions of crystals, and there was no market for it. It had many uses, mainly as a material for crafting top-grade spiritual artifacts. After adding the fire essence jade, the grade of some fire-based top-grade spiritual artifacts would increase dramatically, and their power would increase exponentially, almost comparable to the prototype of a fairy artifact. In ancient times, this was also a peerless treasure that people fought over. However, because of the harsh environment in which it was born, it was extremely rare and difficult to find. Only then did Suyu understand the value of this item, which was beyond imagination. However, Suyu had found another use for the fire essence jade from an ancient book that he had read. Body tempering. If one could withstand the destructive heat of the fire essence jade, he would be able to assimilate it into his body, and he would be able to refine its characteristics. Different fire essences had different characteristics. For example, some fire essences had absorbed fire poison for hundreds of years, so they were extremely poisonous. Some fire essences had been tempered hundreds of times, so they were indestructible. Once ignited, they would never be extinguished. The characteristics of this drop of fire essence from the little demoness were still unknown. If he could refine it into his body, so you would be able to master the characteristics of the fire essence. The only troublesome thing was that the fire essence was extremely dangerous, and even strong all creations would not dare to touch it. Hence, refining it into one's body would be extremely dangerous. Fortunately, the ancient human almighties had finally found a way to stabilize it, which was to use the principle that water and fire reinforce and restrain each other. They used an extreme water-based material to neutralize the destructive power of the fire essence, so that it could be safely refined into one's body. This made Suyu excited, and he had the urge to immediately look for water-based materials. It was rumored that in ancient times, a third-grade almighty martial artist had once used a drop of thousand-year-old water essence to successfully refine a drop of fire essence. In the end, he had obtained a rare fire essence attribute, the heart fire. As long as the enemy was within 100 feet of him, he would be able to affect the enemy's heart fire. If it was light, it would cause the enemy's blood to become chaotic, and they would become careless. If it was heavy, it would cause the enemy to go berserk and die from madness. It was extremely frightening, and even a 6th-grade divine bamboo would not dare to provoke a mere 3rd-grade almighty. Chapter 861. Unfortunately, a water attribute treasure like the 1,000-year-old water essence was hard come by, and it was just as difficult to find as the real spirit dragon veins. Suyu couldn't help but feel lucky that he had made the wise decision to read the ancient books. It was difficult to find such an obscure use in ordinary ancient books. Only the mysterious civilization of the ancient times had such a magical use left. The news of the fire essence jade was a pleasant surprise. In comparison, the news of the curse made Suyu's heart sink. The curse was more difficult to deal with than Suyu had imagined. It was a kind of sorcery in the ancient times. It was mysterious and complicated, and it was said that it had been passed down from a mysterious race other than the human race. There were many kinds of curses, and, according to the ancient books, there were more than 1 million known curses. The same symptoms could be hundreds or thousands of different curses, so it was difficult to distinguish which kind of curse it was based on the symptoms alone. If the curse was removed without any knowledge, it could cause the curse to explode. For example, Suyu's evil spirit haunting curse was only slowly devouring his soul, causing it to weaken gradually. However, if it was removed carelessly, the curse would explode in the form of self-destruction, devouring all of Suyu's soul energy and killing him on the spot. As long as the curse was not removed, it would be a hidden danger. The ghost Buddha who had cast the curse was already dead, so the only way to remove the curse was Suyu himself. Once his soul reached the almighty level, he could suppress the curse and expel it by force. There was no other way. The existence of the curse made Suyu determined to improve his soul energy at all costs. He had to seize every opportunity to improve his soul energy with the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. Fortunately, the seeds of the various materials of the heart-refining mortal dust liquid in the 9-jade spiritual pearl had already sprouted. With the supreme growing soil's nature-defying properties, it would only take 3 to 5 days for the materials to mature. Apart from the fire essence jade and the curse, the Saint Blood Soul nourishing stone that Suyu was very curious about was nowhere to be found. Suyu had checked all the materials related to stones in the shop, but there was no mention of the Saint Blood Soul nourishing stone. It was as if such a thing did not exist. Could the evil god have lied to me? Suyu could not help but be confused. However, the evil god's tone and shocked expression appeared in his mind, and it did not seem to be faked. After thinking for a while, Suyu looked at the piles of ancient books in front of him and could not help but wonder, is it because I haven't read enough ancient books? It was a pity that there were only so many related books in Shurjan Library. In the end, the only thing he hadn't seen was the ancient authentic work with a golden cover that Gongsun Wuxia had flipped through. With a shred of curiosity, Suyu flipped open the ancient authentic writings. As he flipped through a few of them, a decaying aura of the vicissitudes of time assaulted him, intoxicating him. Suyu could not help but sigh inwardly. What kind of era was the ancient era? Why did they leave behind such a flourishing civilization and not be inherited by the current human race? In the ancient books, there were many things that hadn't been passed down in the modern era, such as the miraculous use of the fire essence jade that Suyu had discovered. If Suyu hadn't gone through several hundred ancient books, he probably wouldn't have been able to discover such a great hidden use from a single line of small words. He thought about the Jinlong continent, where he had been born. That continent had once been a barren continent. Later on, when Shuni Qin and the others had arrived, the continent had once shown signs of prosperity. Unfortunately, it had been destroyed by the Blood Emperor, and its civilization had been severed. Could it be that the human civilization of the Jojo continent had a similar reason? Filled with doubts, Suyu continued to read the ancient, authentic writings earnestly. As he flipped through the ancient book, Suyu discovered that it was a dilapidated book. Its cover was intact, but the inside was badly damaged. Most of the pages had been decayed by time and space, turning into dust. Only a few words remained. Fairy Mountains Inn, God-seeking road, all stars rise. None of the words were continuous, and they were all intermittent, with only a few words remaining. Suyu couldn't help but furrow his brows. What the hell is this? After reading it for a long time, Suyu still couldn't figure out the content of the ancient, authentic writings. Was it a description of the ancient era? But those words were really strange. After flipping through it again and again, Suyu's face was filled with bewilderment. He couldn't figure out what extraordinary thing Gongsun Wuxia had discovered in this book, which had made her so excited. After a moment's deliberation, Suyu gave up on reading the words. Instead, he stared at the decayed, illegible handwriting. It was impossible to discern the nearly obliterated handwriting with the naked eye. Fortunately, Suyu's eyesight was far superior to that of ordinary people, and he could even see the leg hairs of a mosquito clearly. Although the handwriting was blurry, it wasn't impossible for him to read it. Suyu's pupils gradually shrank as he stared at the obliterated handwriting. Today, the ink on the paper had long since faded, leaving only the remnants of the brush marks. After flipping through it for a full hour, Suyu finally caught a glimpse of a clue. His heart skipped a beat. On the middle page, He recognized a few lines of small words, and he finally understood what kind of book this was. This wasn't a book that introduced the ancient era at all, but a handwritten note left behind by a man named Yamudauran, which recorded his life experiences. According to the remnant handwriting, he was a peerless strong man who surpassed all creations in the ancient era, and his combat power was no less than a prefecture's king. Later, he fell in a place called the desolate, evil jungle, and this handwritten note had inadvertently flowed out of the desolate, evil jungle. However, no one knew that this handwritten note had such a shocking origin. A prefecture's king was a peerless strong man who was above all creations and a supreme being who ruled over the Jojo continent. What kind of treasure was hidden in the place where he fell? Suyu immediately looked down, hoping to find the place where he had passed away in detail in the handwritten book. Unfortunately, in the end, he only obtained information about the desolate, evil jungle. Apart from that, there was no other information, which disappointed Suyu greatly. According to the description of the book, the desolate, evil jungle was an extremely vast area that was rarely visited by humans. It covered a radius of millions of miles. Even with Suyu's speed, it would still take him several days and nights to cross the desolate, evil jungle. So how could he possibly find the place where he passed away? Moreover, just from the name alone, one could tell that the desolate, evil jungle was not a good place, and it must be very dangerous. Suyu took a light breath, calmed himself down, and re-examined the ancient, authentic work. He hadn't expected that such an ancient book would end up in this kind of bookyard, which was quite surprising. After he finished reading, Suyu looked at the time. Almost 2 hours had passed, and it was time to get up and leave. However, just as he was about to put down the scroll in his hand, his expression changed slightly. He suddenly noticed that there was a very faint sound coming from within the scroll. It sounded like the rustling of sand, which was very faint. In the ears of ordinary people, the sound only lasted for a moment, and most people wouldn't notice it at all. However, Suyu was in a time acceleration state, so the short rustling sound seemed to have been stretched out 400 times in front of him. In Suyu's ears, it was only 1 or 2 breaths' time, but in the ears of others, it was obvious how short it was. Perhaps even the all-creation's strong men wouldn't be able to notice the rustling sound in the book. What's inside? Suyu thought to himself. With a thought, he immediately activated his soul eyes and looked through the whole book. With his transparent eyes, nothing could hide from him. Sure enough, Suyu found that there were 2 grains of golden sand inside each page of the book. Although the handwritten book was dilapidated, not a single page was missing, and it was very complete. Without a doubt, there was a great secret hidden in the golden sand. It was very likely that Yamudauran had deliberately left it in the book to prevent the handwriting from being damaged. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. However, under the watchful eyes of the attendants, he did not want to show it. He quickly regained his composure and flipped open the ancient, authentic work of art. His right palm carelessly touched every page of the book. The waiters who were watching from the side noticed that Suyu had slowed down, and they could barely see his figure flipping through the pages. This person is really strange. How could he flip through the pages so quickly just now? One of the waiters said. He was really shocked by Suyu's action of flipping through the book and almost setting it on fire. Zhao Chuan sneered and said, "Wouldn't he dare to be slow? It's 10,000 crystals for 2 hours. If it were me, I would also flip through the pages at the risk of my life." Unfortunately, he thinks that he's smart and thinks that he can finish reading the book just like that. All the books in our Shurjan library have seals, so whether a person has finished reading all the contents or not will be recorded. Later, we just need to check the seals inside, and we'll be able to make him show his true colors. Humph! Since he dared to be so arrogant, he must pay the price. After a while, Suyu let out a light breath and put down the ancient, authentic work as if nothing had happened. He clenched his right hand into a fist, and at the same time, he stopped accelerating time. He looked up at the waiters and asked, "How long has it been? 2 hours? Haha, you finished it pretty quickly." Zhao Chuan had a faint smile on his face. Suyu said leisurely, "Of course. All right, here are the 10,000 crystals." He casually threw 10,000 crystals to Zhao Chuan. He had only spent so much to finish reading half of the books in the library. It was really a good deal. According to an ordinary person's speed, it would take at least 1,000,000 crystals to finish reading all these books. It was only 10,000 crystals, yet Suyu had managed to gain so much. Suyu had really made a huge profit. Zhao Chuan grabbed the ring and scanned its contents. His pupils shrank slightly. It really was 10,000 crystals. He couldn't help but size up Suyu. He hadn't expected that this old man from the Red Blood Palace would have such wealth. 10,000 crystals was a huge sum, even for an almighty divine master. If there's nothing else, I'll leave. Suyu stretched his body and strode out. Wait! Zhao Chuan, along with a few other attendants, blocked Suyu's way. Suyu squinted his eyes slightly. Oh, does the Shurjan Library do the business of killing people and robbing people? What are you talking about? Our Shurjan Library does business openly. Zhao Chuan raised his eyebrows. Suyu said calmly, Oh, so the money is too little? Zhao Chuan sneered. Don't pretend that you don't understand. Let me ask you, do you remember the rules I mentioned? Rules? Suyu thought for a moment, then said, Are you talking about the rule that I have to finish borrowing all the books on the spot, and only then am I allowed to leave? Zhao Chuan gave him a look that said, Good that you know, then why don't you go back and continue reading? If you don't finish reading all the books, don't even think about leaving. Also, I advise you to prepare the crystals. If you don't have enough crystals, the Shurjan Library will follow the rules and sell you for money. Don't blame us for not showing respect to the Red Blood Palace. I told you to get lost when you came, but you didn't want to. Now, you can't even leave now. So you were surprised. Oh, I see. Didn't I finish reading all the books? What proof do you have that I didn't finish reading them? Zhao Chuan looked at him with disdain. I knew you would say that. As he spoke, he randomly picked out a book that Suyu had borrowed and sneered. I'm afraid you don't know this, but all books have seals on them. As long as you inject a bit of vital energy into them, the seals will react and record the reading progress of the previous owner. The more you finish reading, the redder the light emitted by the seals will be. The deepest color will be blood red. On the contrary, if you don't read a single word, it will be pure white.